welcome to another episode of Draft Day here on the Dyl Pickle Movie Network. We're taking a little bit of a break, kind of from film. We were still talking about film, but not entirely about film. We're actually going into the theaterverse, a place we very, very rarely venture into on this channel because I will never review a piece of theater because that's kind of the main industry I work in. So I don't want to, piss off anyone that I could potentially work for or with. And usually I don't have many negative things to say about theater because I love it so much. I'm a little biased, but I have four gents with me today who love theater and love Stephen Sondheim and are excited to celebrate the legacy of him, his work, his film adaptations, the characters in his work, the songs he's written, sometimes the lyrics he's written for a case or two. So it's going to be very fun. So why don't we get right to it? The Sondheim draft is commencing right now. Bringing in first someone who I met in the theater when I was 8, 7, 6, I don't know. I'm going down the list, but Zach, you tell me what age was I when I met you?
So I was 13. You are how many years younger than me?
4,
So you were
9, 8 or
9 or
9.
8.
Yeah,
9 or 8.
yeah. Yep. So there we go. We met in the theater doing a show that was not Sondheim. It was still about a frog, but it was not Sondheim's.
Little
Frog.
different.
Frog
different.
and Toad was the musical.
A year with, in fact.
A year with, yeah, and a very underrated musical at that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Sondheim. Zach, I'm not gonna ask your favorite. Usually, I would say like, oh, what's your favorite Sondheim show? But we can't do that because that's one of our picks. But are you excited for this?
Dylan, I'm in my element, man. This is it, right? Like this is what I do. I was just saying to the panel before we went live. I'm normally very like written down any of my options. This might be the first time ever that I didn't really not really prepare more. Oh, how did you get into Sondheim? Is someone in the chat? Someone just dropped that in the chat as an opening question. I'll say that. I got into Sondheim because I was in a show my sophomore year of high school that was Sondheim, and I think it's
funny because I know you're trying not to tip picks, so it's I appreciate you dancing around it.
One of the things in theater that like I think every theater kid goes through is you don't like Sondheim until you do it, and then you do it, and then you understand. And I was only in 38 minutes of that show. I was in 38 minutes of that show, and ever since I've wanted to play a different role in that show that I've been chasing for years. And maybe it'll make an appearance today. Who knows? I don't know. You don't.
Yes, but thank you for joining, and I can't wait to talk more theater with you, Zach. Another person who I know is a massive Sondheim show fan and movie fan and just a movie fan in general. Another co-host of the channel from Framewreck, talking about stuff that is very much not in the Framewreck universe, very high art, if you will. It is Little Maddie Riding Hood? Yes, Little Maddie Riding Hood. I had to pop up the name there. How's it going, Matt?
I am doing all right. I realize my name is wrong because it should have been Red Matting Hood because I'm wearing red, but it's fine. It works either way. Anyway,
you are the embodiment of red today.
It's true.
Yeah. I will say this, that in preparation for this draft, I saw plenty of Framewreck editions. Recordings of Sondheim shows, not the shows themselves.
Yeah. But it turns out like an iPhone 6 is not the best cinematography in the world, but if you're sitting from a third row mezzanine seat, it's as good as you can get, I guess.
Oh, iPhone 6 would have been Scorsese compared to some of the 1970s filmed on a camcorder stuff that I watched. But
how did you get into Sondheim, Matt?
Well, my first Sondheim was, I think it's probably true for a lot of people, which is West Side Story from 1961 film. Yeah. But I didn't know it was Sondheim until actually years after I got into Sondheim. You see, I'm an elderly person. So when you get into something, it's very difficult to always get all of the information. The information wasn't at our fingertips all the time.
It's true.
Even after the internet was a thing, just because you were into something doesn't mean you knew everything about it. Wikipedia wasn't a thing yet.
Well, and even just with Sondheim, I feel like pop culture wise, like he's kind of really blown up the last few years because of the Broadway shows going more commercial, and also just his films. There's a little bit more film out there of his, and just with his passing, and just coinciding with the release of Tick Tick Boom and West Side Story being like this whole like, Sondheim end of the year 2021. So
when I had heard about Sondheim, and I had heard about Sondheim. I said it again. God, I've never done that in my life. Sondheim. I'd heard about him, and I read a little bit up on him, and I was like a fan before I had heard any of his stuff. It's really weird. But my first exposure to knowing something was Sondheim and seeing it on a screen was in the movie Jersey Girl, because they perform "God That's Good" at the end at a school talent show.
Wow.
And so that really got me into it. And then I watched a thing. I'm not going to tip what I watched.
Yes.
But I did watch a thing, and I was like, oh, I love this. And I got into some more of the stuff, but I wasn't like fully in. And then a movie based on that thing that I had watched came out, and I fell absolutely head over heels in love, and have been just in love with them ever since. It's weird because I grew up in Oklahoma, and I still live in Oklahoma, and in New York, saying something like I'm a massive fan of Sondheim, someone would be like, "Who isn't?" But if you're in Oklahoma and you're like, "I'm a massive fan of Sondheim," they're like, "Who?"
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I love that because we get like a lot of the different cultural like opinions on it, which is great. But I'm glad you're cultured there, Matt. And hopefully this helps spread the culture a little bit. But let's get the rest of the panel in here. Someone who is local to the New York area, and I know sees almost every show there is to be seen. I'm very jealous. He has that time to rush, and he be rushing. It is Chris. Send in the clowns, Diaz. How's it going, Chris?
Doing good. I'm happy to be part of something I love. I'm huge Sondheim fan. I have the DVD here.
Yeah, the whole shirt and the books. Right. Love it. When I first met you, Chris, you were playing the steward in Into the Woods. So I was like, this is a perfect person I had to ask to be on this. So
Into the Woods was the only Sondheim show I ever done in real life.
It is something that is like not. There are certain shows that get done a lot, but really it is such a niche thing because also you need the orchestrations to back it up too. That it's something that doesn't get produced nearly enough as it should. Other shows, there's like one or two that you see a lot of produced, but when you get to either be in or see a Sondheim show, it really is a special experience.
And I've seen, unlike bootleg, I've seen a lot of his shows on Broadway. Yes, I am very happy with. I might, and not to mention, because I might bring up later, one of his shows that won the Tony Award this past week.
You're not going to name the show, but it is the one that just won the Tony Award. Won her.
Just
yeah. But I appreciate it. It just touched me in a way. Like his music inspired me. I love his music. I got to play him actually a couple weeks ago. My friend Dalton does like research group. I put it
cool.
way. So we did Ticket Boom for his birthday, and then I've got to play Stephen Sondheim.
I love that. Nice. Very own Bradley Whitford with us. Well, that's awesome, Chris.
I studied his mannerisms so well, so when I was on...
very distinct mannerisms. I love it. Well, thank you for being...
I didn't realize... I'm sorry. I didn't realize that Chris was an actor. I didn't know you'd been in shows, but it did remind me that while Zach was talking about that he had a dream role of a Sondheim, my dream role for you is actually in a Sondheim as well. And I've told you what it was, but I'm not going to talk about it right now.
Who? Dylan?
No, for Zach.
No, for you. His dream role for you is
it's the same one.
Okay.
but
the man of first.
But the man of all our dreams, and the last person we're going to introduce here is our very own JD Domash, back on Draft Day staple. Welcome back to Draft Day. How you doing, JD? And what was your introduction to Sondheim?
Hey, how's it going? It's been quite a whirlwind because we were talking about doing this before the 24 subathon. And so I started watching a little of my blind spots before that. Then I had to shift to Buffyverse because that was floated as a draft pick. And then to come back to Sondheim now, it's been quite a whirlwind, but hey, when the winds are blowing, that's the time to smile. Anyways,
get her into the crowd.
I will... I don't want to tip picks, but
please don't.
As a kid who had parents who introduced them to weird musical like Rocky Horror Picture Show and Little Shop of Horrors, they mentioned this other show, this other musical that we may talk about, and then it was an obsession for several years until I finally saw it. So that's how I got into Sondheim.
Nice.
I love Sondheim because it was when I finally was able to see it. That was I was able. Also, it was at that time where I was finally able to kind of like crystallize, kind of like I came to this late, like crystallize opinions or crystallize what you think about things. Otherwise, oh, I like other than oh, I like this or oh,
like forming your sense of taste in a way.
Correct. That it was the first time, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's why I like those other musicals, because musicals are a medium in the same way animation is a medium, and it's a way another medium to do kind of tell other different kinds of stories. And I think Sondheim was the master at that. And also, for the most part, from all intents and purposes, at least from what I hear, was not a dick, like some other geniuses. Well, and yeah.
He had a lot of patience.
You don't have to be a dick to be in order to do good stuff. What a world! What a revelation!
If you watch the original cast recording of Company, which is incredible. It should be 15 hours long, which is how much he taped of the thing. Yeah. You see him in action, and it's brilliant because, and I saw somebody on Letterboxd talking about how harsh he was during it, but he wasn't harsh at all. He'd go up to someone and go, "Did you think that was good?" And they would be like, "I don't know." He's like, "I think if you just went here and did this," like he had such a cool way of being like, "I didn't like that, but here's a constructive way to talk about it." He was really. It was really great.
Yeah, just a very giving person as well. I mean, he's the reason a lot of careers started. Jonathan Larson, Lin-Manuel Miranda, like a lot of these very famous composers for Broadway. But I know there was a little bit of a long preamble than usual, but it was really important to get our just our bases of this knowledge and just our love for Sondheim out there as almost like a little eulogy before we get into this, which is very, very exciting. I did want to also bring up at the top of the show because I usually wait to the end because I forget about it. But I just wanted to say because JD did bring up the subathon that congratulations, Chad, you won our Director Roulette 2.0 draft.
Nice.
After stealing a film you hadn't even seen in the second round from me, who said it was his favorite of that director's. I am still salty. And then for our TV show draft, I got a little bit of a revenge there because we tied. Actually, Matt, me, and Chad tied for the win for the TV themes as of now. I mean, these
you're saying Judge Judy didn't get that Judge Judy contingent?
Unfortunately not, but you didn't come in last, JD. You tied for last. So
that's a success.
Well, there were 3 people tied for first and 2 people tied for last, but you didn't get less votes than the other person, which I believe was Kelsey. So congratulations to all the winners, me, Matt, Chad, and Chad again. But polls are always still open. So you can keep voting, keep pushing those buttons, and you will keep voting for this one as well, I'm sure, when it's over. But we have to decide the order, and how we will is by a wheel. But let me explain the rules of how it's going to work first, because I actually did type them out this time. It's snaked, meaning whoever's fifth pick will have the first pick in the second round, so on and so forth. You must choose, and here are the rules for those listening, one Sondheim musical. So this is like a stage production, basically drafting a Sondheim musical, but because, there are different iterations and versions of each musical in a way after revivals, we will specify the year in version. So like if you wanted to take like the 20-something revival of so-and-so, that's welcome as well. You will pick one Sondheim film adaptation. This is a much more narrow field, which could make the interesting strategy for the draft in general. You will pick one solo song from a Sondheim musical, one group song from a Sondheim musical. Those definitions have a little bit of blurred lines, so we'll get there when we get there. One character from a Sondheim musical. That one is not necessarily all due to Sondheim. There's obviously a lot of great collaborators he worked with, but a lot of his music did inform those characters. So I think that's going to be a fun way to kind of bridge all the gaps there. If anyone does disagree with the eligibility of a pick, they think it doesn't belong in that said category, or they just question if it should be allowed, or if for some reason someone tries to draft something from like Shrek the Musical and you say, hey, that's not a Sondheim show, you can veto, and 3 of the 4 other panelists will have to also agree to veto the pick. So you can have one person say, I'll allow it, and the other 3 can say no, and then it'll be overturned. And please do not mention or discuss picks until they're drafted. We've already tipped a few, but it's kind of necessary when talking about our introductions. But from now on, we'll try to like save our talking about other shows and especially the songs and characters to a minimum. So I do have the wheel. I have to open up this spot. This
is the most nervous I've ever been for a wheel.
I need to go first.
Here's a wheel.
I forgot that I was going to do I thought we were doing a Gilbert and Sullivan draft.
No.
And Matt, you're getting your wish. Fucking Christ. All right, Matt, where do you want to go in the draft?
Number 1.
Yep, I figured.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Dylan, you don't have anything to worry about because I know what you're hoping I don't get, and I'm not taking.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
No!
Please. Yes. I'm gonna go. Ooh. Okay. So here's the thing. I am worried that Matt is leading me astray, but Matt's picking before me. Do I think Zach, Chris, or JD are gonna take what I want? I'm worried about JD, so I'm gonna go second. Even though there's two things I really, really want because it's like there's no other this and there's no other that I want. So I'm really worried. But I'm gonna go for 2 just because I at least want to guarantee that I'm gonna get one of them. And if I go third,
that's why I went with 1.
No!
All right, Chris, are you going 3rd, 4th, or 5th?
Third.
I needed
I
to
am
go
about
early.
I want to make sure nobody picks.
All right, here we go, Zach. The moment of truth. Are you gonna get 4th or 5th?
Oh, thank
pick?
God. Yeah, I'm gonna go 4th.
Okay, so JD, you're getting the wraparound back to
Damn
back.
it.
I am very worried just because JD is the wild card here. I don't think Zach's going to take what I want. I know Matt says he's not going to take what I want, but I'm worried he's going to. I don't know. But Matt, just kick us off. We're already 60 minutes in. We have to get this moving. So let's go, Matt. What's it gonna be?
I thought you said 60. I was like, have we been doing this for an hour?
No. I mean, we could have been. I did make
All
sure.
right, let's go.
Once I noticed the eulogies were going on, I was like, all right, next.
By the way, Chris is my wild card because he's seen everything and I don't know what he likes.
Well, that's why I'm not worried about losing my production because I'm like, he'll probably pick something he's seen that I haven't that I can.
Yeah.
All right.
Ahead, so Matt. I'm actually, I don't know what Zach is worried. I'm not sure which thing he's worried about because I referenced the character and I actually am picking a production.
Oh no.
I am going to pick, and I know this is probably not within the rules, but I'm going to pick the Charles Page High School 2024 production of Into the Woods. Not really. I'm going to pick the 1987/1990 DVD of Into the Woods.
Ooh, original Broadway production of Into the Woods. Okay.
When my wife and I got together, we shared. My wife and I don't have a lot in common. We actually are the definition of opposites attract. There's so much we don't have in common, but there are a few things we do have in common, and now we have a lot more in common because stuff we watch together, and we enjoy a lot of the things. But we did have one thing in common. We both loved a particular Sondheim, or we each loved our own specific Sondheim musical. She didn't really know much about Sondheim beyond Into the Woods, and I was a big fan of this other one. But the fact that we both liked the Sondheim was great. The one that I love, she would never watch because she doesn't watch that kind of stuff. But she showed me this one. And I was like, this is why I'm in love with this man. This is why I love Sondheim. It was absolutely everything. It was absolutely. We own it like in 3 different ways too. But it was absolutely everything that I wanted. It was funny. It was heartbreaking. It was inspirational. There was just so much of the Sondheim sensibility that I've learned that I love since then that was present in this thing. And I fell in love. I can watch it all the time. In fact, I watched it last night. I wasn't going to watch it again to prepare because I've seen it so many times. I watched it last night, and today I was like, maybe I'll throw on Into the Woods again. But no, I shouldn't do that because I've got other things to watch. I love this production. The cast is so good. I'll talk about the characters or the cast of the characters later because I don't want to tip too much right now. But the cast is so good. There are certain ones that are absolute favorites of mine. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm sure we'll talk about this show more later. But I love Into the Woods.
Great pick. Now that he's name dropped it, Zach, I'll let you actually say what show you were in on sophomore year of high school, so you can at least rip the Band-Aid off, and you can talk also a little bit about the OBC.
It was Into the Woods, and it was my sophomore year of high school, and I played. It's not really whatever. No one's picking this character, I don't think. I played just the wolf.
Oh,
and if you've ever done Into the Woods or
not
watched
the wolf and the other,
no, I was just the wolf, which is a very common high school thing to do. I just directed Into the Woods at my high school last year, and because of my experience with that, I said I will not do it if I do have someone who is capable of playing both roles, and I did have someone who is capable of playing both roles. Matt, I mean, what am I going to say? It's a bad pick? Never. I think it's a great pick. I will say, off my brow, it was not the thing on my list, but I mean, the OBC is unbelievable. It's one of those weird things for like a high school theater kid. Listening to the original Broadway production of Into the Woods is not like an enjoyable experience, because that soundtrack doesn't lend itself to what now more modern day soundtracks lend themselves to, which is full, like, quick bursts, everything kind of cut up really, really neat and really, really nice. I mean, if you look at the production, the most recent Into the Woods versus that Into the Woods, even just on the soundtrack level. But what's beautiful about it is that you don't get the quality. You don't get to dive into the quality of acting on the soundtrack, and it's why it's a must-watch production. It is not a listen to and that's it. It is a must. I mean, like Chip Zine, unbelievable performing. Bernadette, like, come on, man.
Joanna Gleason.
Man. And like, that it's just some of the Broadway heavy hitters of that time period, and you don't get their names nearly as much anymore. But then when you go back and you watch, like, they are the foundation of Broadway as we know it, and that's where it was built. That is where Broadway was built, in productions like that. So I think it's a great first pick.
Just real quick on the high school productions of that show. That show the production that I had pretended I was going to pick actually did happen this year at the local high school here. My wife's best friend's daughter played Milky White.
Yeah, I remember that story.
And she was the highlight of that show. The show was great. The kids did excellent, but she was so funny. Like, people were coming up after being like, "You were the best part." And for someone playing a role that is traditionally played by a
puppet,
by a wooden cow, that's
crazy.
It's great. But yes, go on. Sorry.
No, it's a great pick. I think it's just a great, like, solid number one. Also because it's so accessible, and like Sondheim stuff it's all high art. It's very involved. It's very purposeful. Every single note, beat, measure, tick, lyric is so unique and inspired. But this is, I think, one of his more accessible works, and that's why we keep talking him, like, hinting around these flops he's had. The reason why he's able to still have a legacy that he does is because of shows like Into the Woods, where it's like, this is something that took stuff that was so familiar. It's like fairy tale stories. You know them. You take one character that you don't necessarily know too well to be kind of the conjurer of this, like, mayhem, to then set forth this plot where all these characters then have to work together, and then you kind of, I'm dancing around so many character names without tipping them, but then you also have this other kind of more relatable, like, protagonist that the audience can see their eyes through, as, again, a character that doesn't exist in fairy tale lore, but being kind of that audience surrogate to then kind of interact with all these different fairy tale creatures. It's, I think, what Shrek did for a more kids animated medium decades later, in a very different stylistical way. But it's the idea of taking your nostalgia and your childhood and these stories and making them familiar while also putting a twist on them. Like, you would never expect Cinderella's you would never expect, like, certain characters to fool around with other characters and stuff, but like, that's kind of the edge that Sondheim brings to something so familiar like this. And it is also, despite being his most accessible, also probably his most whimsical. This and one other more genre-y musical. I mean, this really does dig into the fantasy elements of it. It feels like something that kids can enjoy, even if they're not picking up all the nuances, but also adults can enjoy because of the nuances, which I really appreciate. Which is also going to be interesting when we talk about another thing that I would love to talk about it in conjunction with. Maybe that has to do with the retrospective we've been doing on the channel, for example. But there's just something about the magic of the stage that just captures that notion of just existing in a place with all these characters, you the audience, and these actors, and this kind of overall ambiance just all existing at once. Like, you're just you're a fly on the wall bystander to all that's going on, which is really, really a cool effect that I think theater can give that other mediums can't, in that sense, if you know what I'm picking up. But I think it's great, so I love the pick.
Yeah, it is it's in my it's again. I'm trying to spread the love, so like, but if I were ranking Sondheim musicals, it's in my top two, top three, 2 and 3. There's one that's a clear one, and then 2 and 3 go back and forth. It's in that like it is. I think it's so charming, the show. And I love this. I love the 1987 production of it as well. Mm-hmm. Like Bernadette Peters, I have a massive crush on. I've seen a lot of her productions are the ones that get filmed, and it's because she understands the wit, I think, better than the Sondheim wit, better than I think anyone else. And few people really understand it. And I think like you have to really understand that you have to have a good wit in order to really understand it. I don't think you can just pretend to have that wit. You really, really need to know it. And
this is the most impressive dancing around naming the character I've ever seen before on Draft Day, JD, because it also aids to the point of Sondheim being a very good, witty writer, but also dancing around the character name. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, but yeah, it also, you have such these charming shows, these funny shows, these dark shows, at times very horny shows, or horny moments, so to speak. But then I find myself constantly crying at the last 25 minutes of every single one of these shows, just bawling like my eyes out. And again, I'm trying to dance around stuff, but the last 25 minutes of Into the Woods, I always, and specifically in the 1987 version, I always bawl my eye for the last 25, constantly. Bawl my eyes.
Yeah, it's great. Full disclosure, Into the Woods is my favorite Sondheim show of all time. I done this. I actually had callback for Wolf when I did Into the Woods back in 2022.
Nice.
Went to between me and one other guy, and up getting Stuart and Granny, but we're close.
Stuart and Granny? That's impressive.
Yeah,
I love that.
Stuart and Granny, incredible.
Yeah, and it's just a fun show. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I think we'll last a bit more than one. If somebody else projecting the other one might get brought up a little bit later. You never know.
Yeah.
But that used to be my favorite production Into the Woods until recently, but we'll go into detail until I get to later.
Cool. All right. So moving along, this is going to be the most Dylan pick ever because I spent my whole childhood, high school, young adult life, most of my 20s being like, why the hell are my siblings in Sondheim shows, and my mom's directed and been in a Sondheim show, and I'm watching them in the theaters, and I can't get cast in a Sondheim show? And then the great, amazing, talented, visionary director Eamon Foley had an audition. I went. I sang a song.
This is so Dylan. You're right.
I sang a song for him that I won't tip because it's also on my list for solos, but I sang a Sondheim song for him. There was just this immediate connection. We talked for a while. I read some sides for him, and then a week later I got cast in Sunday in the Park with George at the Axelrod Performing Arts Center in New Jersey in Asbury Park, and it changed my life. It is one of those things that Zach was saying, and this is not necessarily solely, everyone's experience, because there are people, like Matt said, that aren't, or they're in other parts of the world, so their consumption of Sondheim is mostly through watching or through watching bootlegs or stuff like that. But I really, for an actor at least, it is kind of one of those things where you don't truly understand. You don't understand Sondheim until you are fully engrossed in it, in either Matt's way of like binging them all this week and really like seeing every version, or like for my experience, sitting down with the score of Sunday in the Park with George and just like being engulfed in these beautiful lyrics and beautiful music, and just a beautiful, beautiful story, but also a story that's so pleasant and relatable as well. I mean, it kind of is that Into the Woods. Oh, I'm picking Sunday in the Park with George, by the way, as my musical from 1984. I think that's the production, the original production. But I should have said that. But but just the way it just breathes is so nice too, and that's what I love. There's an urgency to certain moments, but at the same time, it is just about these people in a park and how their different relationships grow or fall apart or expand or bond as this progression of events happens. And the genius choice of Act Two just being a totally different thing altogether is something that very few few composers or directors or conceptual artists can create. But Sondheim does such a good job in still making their existing a thematic through line while also still making it distinctly different and setting it in a different era. The original production is so meaningful. It's one of the best like bootlegs out there. It's not a bootleg, it's a pro shot, but like one of the best like recorded Broadway shows there is. The set, it's not minimalist because there's so much detail going on, but it's very straightforward, but it also can be interpreted, as we saw, with a certain revival, as we saw with my production, also with including dance to personify the colors and the fact that they were using point shoes to symbolize the pointillism of the paintbrush on the canvas, like just different aspects of the show that every time I listen to it, every time I read it, I have this book here, Putting It Together, written by James Lapine, which is probably the best book I've ever read in my life. I will ship it to whoever wants to read it after me, because I need to read it like 6 more times. Look, I Made a Hat is a great book as well that Chris has, but just about the tough process it was to getting the show made and figuring out how to cut stuff down, and certain characters having songs that don't have songs anymore, or the whole Act Two concept in general, and the idea that it's a very hard pitch, it's a very weird pitch, but you're taking a classic piece of art and basically telling a story about what you think those characters were doing in the park that day just by looking at an image, but it works and it's so beautiful. It is the most important piece of art that I've ever interacted with, seen, watched, felt, breathed, and I owe a lot to it. I owe a lot to Eamon for casting me and giving me the opportunity. I owe a lot to Talia and Graham, our George and Dot. I'm gonna name the names of the characters, sorry, but I also owe a lot to just that whole cast, Katie and Bernard, and the dancers, and just so many people I love. It is just one of the most meaningful experiences of my entire life. So, I know we're drafting productions, and I'm drafting the original, but it's a show I'm so in love with. So I don't know if it would have been stolen from me, but I'm glad I picked second so I could get it. I was worried, Matt, you would take it, but
well, it's on my list. And if 2 others had been taken, I would have. But I knew how much this meant to you, so I was not going to put it at the top. And plus, Into the Woods is my favorite one anyway. Right. So, I love how personal it is to you. And throughout all of you being in the show, we were chatting a lot, you and I, and I know how important this is to you, and so I'm really glad you were able to draft this. Just a quick production note here for our show. I think we gotta just 86 the not talking about characters.
Let's still not discuss songs, but I think characters and actors we can do.
I think we can talk about characters and actors as long as we're not going into extreme detail about the characters.
Yeah,
we can talk about them.
So let's make a rule. We can talk about the characters, but not in depth, like you said, talking about the characters. We can mention the characters. Let's not mention songs until they come up, and let's also not try to compare and contrast films to them, because I almost did it with Into the Woods. So
yeah, me too. So I sorry, Chris, just real quick. I'm gonna so I really love this show, and yes, it was high on my list. So it was in some danger, but not danger with me going first and you going second. There's something I love about it, and you actually were talking about how the show in Act 2 becomes something completely different. But does it? Because in a way, I do know what you mean. But I'm making a point off of that, is how it does become something different, but it also is still this same story about this, not the same man, but a man who fights the same demons as his grandfather and who has the same passion as his grandfather, and basically has a lot of these same things. What's that?
Great grandfather.
He's a great grandfather. Sorry. Regardless, yeah. Who struggles with a lot of these same things, and seeing a reflection of himself in this, or of his work and what he wants to do in this art that his great grandfather made, and in his great grandfather, seeing a reflection of himself in his great grandfather. It's a really beautiful show, and I really love it. And JD was talking about how Bernadette Peters understands Sondheim better than anyone, and I completely agree with that. I think there's 4 people who understand Sondheim the absolute best, and that's Mandy Patinkin, Bernadette Peters, Elaine Stritch, and
Patti LuPone.
Patti LuPone's a good point, but that was not the one I was about to say. And Angela Lansbury.
Oh yes,
just because they feel so perfectly suited to the things that they do. But anyway, that's not the point. I think it's a beautiful show, and it's a great pick. So
one last note too. I sorry, Chris. But like Act 2, yeah, I love what you said about how like it does kind of mirror a lot of the stuff from Act 1. But also there's that idea of like, you know, the fact that George, the first act, it's all about the emotions and the art, and the second one it's all about the commercialism of the art and what art itself has. I think that's the biggest difference, is that art itself takes on a different meaning. You know, like the first act, it's like everyone's a celebrity who's an artist now. In the second act, it's more about like the financial stuff and all the business of art and like what does art mean if it's just basically ends to a product and a commercial aspect. So I just think it interacts with art in a different way. But you're right, in the terms of the themes and the character, it does have a great parallel. But Chris, I will let you talk because I know you've been chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, I love Banana Pot and George. This is a blind spot, a show they have yet to do a production of, because I've seen the last Sondheim show, but I never got a chance to see it. To see it with Jake Gyllenhaal. I did want to see it way back in it while Broadway. But it's a great show. The music's fantastic. It's very cultural show. I love how it get references to other stuff. We talked about at the beginning, Tit Tit Boom, the Sunday scene. I think it's a great representation of the love for Sunday in the Park. When Bernadette with the hat, that moment made me tear up every time we watched Tit Tit Boom. Like the night little touch. But I loved it. It one of easily some of Sondheim's best songs, some of his emotional moments to shows. Like it's a good pick. Like
thank you.
I have one of his songs on my list of shows.
So I understand why Dill thought I was thinking that it was possible I may taken this. I watched this last night.
Right, and you kept sending me pictures of it, so I was like, I can't let you pick before me, JD.
It was on. I will tell you, I knew how much it meant to you, so it was not really. It's in my top 3. I saw this for the first time, like the production you're talking about. I bought it during the pandemic because I'm like, oh, you know, I want to catch up on. I want to watch some musicals. I'm in a musical mood, and immediately is that it's in that like fighting with Into the Woods, and it fights with Into the Woods constantly. Those are the two. They're constantly going back and forth to 2 and 3. Like it is what you said though about it is kind of this. It's the second act is kind of the same thing, but not really. And it kind of. The other thing that I kind of love, this is like one of those shows where it's like, you think like, oh, just when you think it's at the point, oh, it's made its point, you know, it's made its point. It's you think it's gonna wrap up. It's about that time. They introduce this another wrinkle, and then you're just locked in for the last 25 minutes of it. It is, as I said, it is one of my favorite, it is one of my favorite, you know, Sondheim touches that he does. It is talking about another show where like the last 25 minutes, I'm just constantly bawling. You should have seen me last. I've almost thought about doing like sometimes you do like after
sending
watching
pictures
the Paddington, I thought about doing that, to be honest with you. But yeah, when they introduced that wrinkle with Dot and George, I bawl. I bawl at that last 25 minutes, and it is when you see the restoration of the park coming back, because that was another thing that is introduced in the third act. When you're back to your point of like, it's kind of this different show, but not really. They're talking about how the park is constantly changing, and then to see it comes back. I don't know why, but that just when I see that come back, and then the Sunday score goes in. It's a beautiful, beautiful musical, and that's why it's gone so high in such a short amount of years for me, is because it is. I feel that emotion.
Cool. Jack, any thoughts? I almost called you Jack. I'm sorry. Because I was going from JD to Zach. I was like, Jack.
Your production of that show is one of the most well done Sondheim pieces of theater I've ever seen.
You made me cry, man. We're only on pick 2. Oh my God.
So I had never seen Sunday until I saw your production. So I actually don't know a ton about the original Broadway production other than who it is, and like it's a recipe for success. The thing that I loved about your production, and the thing that and this is what Sondheim does really well, is that when he picks a song and he decides that he cares about it. I mean, he cares about all of his songs, but when he picks a song and he decides that is the Act 1 finale of Sunday in the Park with George in particular is one of those like most beautiful moments where you decide that you love theater again. You decide that you are going to love theater in its entirety. Because, and I mean, that's to your credit, Dylan, of your production. I remember sitting there and the way that they incorporated color, the way they incorporated everything, but just like the score itself, the way that it swells. I mean, that if you need a show to make you love theater and Sondheim, and you don't want to sit for 2.5 hours before you feel that, you should watch Sunday in the Park with George, because you will love theater before the intermission happens. And then when you love theater again is when you get to experience the characters and what's important to Stephen Sondheim, which is the relationship between Sondheim. I mean, this is not a secret. Sondheim has a very troubled relationship with his mother. It's one of the most important things about him, I think, to know. And if you look in every musical he does, there is a mother involved, and she is one of two things. She is either overbearing and uncaring, or she's overbearing and cares too much, or she is uncaring and almost has no want to be around whoever she is with. But Dot in Act 2 of Sunday in the Park with George is what I think he wanted his mother to be. And so that's why she is so unbelievable in those moments. And that's why that second act is just...
Yeah. Speaking about, that's a good point about falling. It makes you fall in love with theater again, because this was the musical that made him fall in love with theater after he nearly quit because of the failure of another musical that somebody may talk about later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's why I
never thought about it that way, but that's such a good point.
It's why in Tick Tick Boom, what the hell is that song? We Can't Take It. So the diner
they call it Sunday. Yeah,
it's just called Sunday. That it's not even involved in this draft. But if you want to cry on any day, go watch Andrew Garfield's Tick Tick Boom and watch Sunday. Just go watch it. Just go watch it. That's
that Peter cameo in there.
Well, and that song is a direct reference to this show. So
that's what I mean. Like it's his motifs in that song. Sorry, we're trying not to talk about songs, but
it's okay. It's I mean, when the song is also the name of the show, it's tough.
his musical motifs in that song evoke something that is like, even just thinking about it, you like, and there's like French horn in it, and it just like, it's unbelievable. Everything about it. Your production was flawless, Dylan. I loved everything about it, but it really, like, if we're not even just talking about that, if we're talking about the choice of Sunday in the Park with George, if you want to fall in love with musical theater and you don't want to wait until the end of the show, watch Sunday in the Park with George. Point blank, period. Wipe it.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Yeah. Oh yeah, Matt. Sorry, Chris. It's you. Sorry. I just needed to like take a second. Whew. Okay, Chris, go ahead with your pick.
So, my fifth pick. I don't go with character because I have a feeling somebody might take the character and go with going with the character that the most funniest for Sondheim stuff, the more developed character. I think that every time I see it portrayed, I think with the Stetson movie would portray brilliantly. I go with Miss Lovett from
Just
Teen
love
Top.
it. Great.
Yeah.
Great pick.
Miss Lovett is to me the quintessential scene stealing, well developed, depending on whoever played it. And you just hate her and you love her at the same time. She's someone who thinks she's smarter than everybody. She can think of stuff on the top of her head, what to do in an instant until you get to the end when, the Lucy reveal happens. Everything just fall apart at that point for her. But I think the stuff with her and Todd, I think, done brilliantly. I think Angela Lansbury in my second favorite Miss Lovett.
Ooh.
A tie
Patty
for
LuPone
being Camille Camelo when I saw it with Lewis, who played Miss Lovett, and Sutton Foster, who got played recently. I can't mention song, but what Sutton Foster does with her leg in one moment on one of her tattoos, so one of the most funniest things I've seen this year.
So you said it's a tie between Sutton and Carly Carmela?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
I wish more people got to see Camille Camelo perform in Miss Lovett because she played the more evilest I think on Miss Lovett. She just
well, there's just so many shades you can play her too. You can play her more sympathetic. You can play her just zanier and funnier. You can play her more straight tone. It's just so interesting, the different adaptations. You don't find two Miss Lovett's the same. Yeah.
I don't love Helen Bonham Carter performing. I know some people do. I just think that she can't sing. To be honest, I love Helena, but she's not a good singer. Is that what you need with Miss Love? You need to have that good singing voice as well to hit. I think kind of missed the humor in Miss Love. I think that's what I love. We can't mention songs, so I can't mention one, but the three more funniest song in the show she have. But I think brilliant. I love her relationship with Toby. I think, and much as sometimes crap at Angela Ashford, I think that one of the best things with her Miss Love was you just see the destroyness of her when she realized she had to get Toby up to say Mr. Todd that moment of realization. Taylor does it great well. And it's brilliant. I think Miss Love is the most well-written Sondheim character besides somebody friends with her. I know somebody else in another instance. Yeah.
Chris,
was he gonna were you gonna take it?
I thought I wasn't gonna have to worry about it, so that she was my number one, but truly I'm happy that she does go because Chris, I agree with everything that you said. I don't agree with the fact that I think Sutton and Carolee Carmela are your top, because for me it is Annalee Ashford. That was, dude. So this is fun. I'm gonna give a very, very small anecdote. In the most recent revival of Sweeney Todd, during a song, Annalee Ashford as Mrs. Lovett is supposed to hop up onto the bar and slide. And that night, she missed the bar, or she couldn't get on, so she had to do it again.
Yeah.
And I was there with my mother and my wife, and my wife and I took the two seats. And my mother went to the bathroom, and then she stood behind, and they were still in previews. And that night, when she missed it, my mom was standing by the director's table or wherever they were, and she missed it, and everyone laughed, and he literally wrote to his assistant and went, "Keep it."
Love that.
So the night that moment, which is if you go on TikTok and you search it, that is her moment that she does in that show. That moment was conceived on the night that I saw Sweeney Todd's most recent revival. Very cool thing to be in the theater for.
Wow.
I think she is such a brilliant character. I think her writing is beautiful because she is the character that you're meant to fall in love with quickly, so that at the end, when you realize her deception, you are supposed to feel as cut as Benjamin Barker is. You are supposed to feel the deception, and feel that cut to your heart in the way that every other person probably in the show does. And I think that that's beautiful because I love a character that I'm supposed to love and then end up being betrayed by. I think she is the epitome of that, probably to a T. And when she is performed well, I mean, she is the show. The show is called Sweeney Todd, but it is her show. It's the role that I want my wife to play the most. I want to see her perform.
I agree.
I maybe want to do a show. I don't know. I want to do that show with her. I think it would be unbelievable.
It's really funny just how everyone has like a different favorite Mrs. Lovett. You know, like we're listing it off, and Chris is like it's Carolee or Sutton. Matt's like it's Angela. Zach's like it's Anna Lee. You know, I might be on the Anna Lee train with you, Zach, but I again haven't. This is like a major fun, I guess not fun fact, but I've never seen a live production of Sweeney. I've only seen filmed productions of it. So and that includes filmed productions or filmed versions of the live shows. Like I've only seen the movie, so it's very interesting. But I've listened.
That version is going on tour. I hope I get it.
Yeah, I've listened to every version, but I've never seen every version. I've seen like clips, obviously, of Anna Lee and Carolee, of course, and some of Patty, I think. But yeah, it's such a good role that like literally can be done so many different ways, which I appreciate. And each actress that does it usually shines because not just because they're great, but because the role's great and it emphasizes all the greatest features in a great actress too.
Yeah. Shout out also to Emma Thompson as well. So really good.
Emma Thompson as well. Yeah. Matt, who's your favorite? Angela.
This was my number one character. So you stole it from both me and Zach. So value.
Damn, dude. Very good.
So I have seen. I've never seen it live, as in a theater. Seen it live. I have seen 3 versions of her on the screen, and I have listened to several productions. I've never seen the Annalise, that one. I haven't seen it. I've listened to that soundtrack, and I think that soundtrack is just killer. I think that cast recording is so good. She's very good. But of the ones that I've seen and listened to, I don't think there's ever been a bad Mrs. Lovett. I think they're all so good. I disagree with Chris about Helena Bonham Carter. I think she's very funny in that movie, and I really like her in that movie. In the movie, but for me, it's Angela Lansbury. Angela Lansbury will always be the Mrs. Lovett for me. It's funny because this feels like a role before she would even be able to play it, but a role that is tailor made for Bernadette Peters. But she has never played it and says she doesn't want to. She'd rather play Sweeney.
I love that one.
This I forgot to say it too. I've been asked before what my like gender reverse cast with. This is it. If I could play any female role, this is it, man.
Mr. Roberts.
So it's
John Lovett.
The thing about Miss Lovett, and I like what Chris was saying about it, like or Zach. I like what both of you guys had to say about it, but Zach was saying about like you fall in love with her and then you feel that betrayal at the end. The thing about Mrs. Lovett is that she keeps you on the bad guy's side of the story because Sweeney's not. I mean, he is the protagonist. He's not the good guy. And so she keeps you sympathetic to that whole thing. I mean, he does too with what his plight is, but she keeps you okay being there. And so I agree. When it gets to that point where the betrayal happens, it's like you also feel betrayed. And I just love Miss Lovett. She's absolutely the most well-rounded character. She's the most in-depth character. She is the most successfully played character in everything. Patti LuPone is great. Angela Lansbury is great. Helena Bonham Carter is great. And all of the musical versions that I've heard are all great. So I love Mrs. Lovett. She was my number one. And there we go.
Cool. Anything else on Mrs. Lovett? No? Cool. All right.
You can move on.
Yeah, Zach, you're up on the clock now.
Dylan, you shouldn't have skipped it. You should have picked something that you wanted instead. And maybe I have the wrong read. I am picking my film adaptation.
Okay.
Because I just can't allow. I said to my wife that we were doing this today, and she said, "What do you pick first?" And I said, I can pick around pretty much everything except if I miss this, because I think the jump between the best Sondheim film adaptation and the second best is probably this big.
I would probably agree with you, but I hope we're
I'm not
talking
sure-
about different
I'm not
ones.
sure I agree with that, but go
I
on.
don't
Yeah,
know.
I hope Zach's talking about one that okay, go ahead, Zach.
I have gone back and forth, and it's because of something that somebody said to me in my classroom the other day. When you see it, no matter who you are and what your background is, you will walk out singing it. And so for my film adaptation, I'm going to pick West Side Story from 1961.
Yes!
Oh!
And I know
It's never getting to me.
I was gonna say I thought that Dylan might pick the 2021 version, mainly.
What?
That's also where I thought you were going.
Oh no! I wonder what you would have wanted other than the 1961 version. The thing for me is the 1961 version is nostalgic for me. And this is one of those things, like, I don't really care what we all pick because we all have our own reasons for loving the things that we do.
Right.
I remember distinctly sitting in my 8th grade English class at Hillside Avenue School, and I remember reading Romeo and Juliet, and then I remember watching West Side Story afterwards, and I remember every single person in that classroom, whether they were a jock, whether they play, they were an honor roll student, if they liked theater, if they did whatever it was, every single person walks out of that class humming along. Anything. They were humming the Jets, they were humming Tonight, they were humming there was no boundary, which is so ironic considering what the show is about.
Right.
And I picked the 1961 version because it is actually, fun fact, the version that most English classes still play over the 2021 version.
Mm-hmm.
And a student said to me the other day, before school ended, one of my seniors, she said, I just love that even though people might pretend to hate musicals, every member of the football team that just watched West Side Story went out humming I Like to Live in America. And
great.
that for me, like, above every I think that the 2021 version of the film is a better film.
We can talk later.
Maybe someone will talk about it, but I think that the 1961 version is monumental, and that's what's different about it. Is that the 2021 version is a little more like, let's make it a little bit more palatable. The 1961 version was monumental in opening the door for a lot of people to start enjoying theater. If you can sense a theme about what I care about, it might be that I just think that it's important for people to enjoy theater.
Yeah, no, it is a good gateway, and I think for a lot of people, it is the gateway. I mean, this won Best Picture, so like you're totally not wrong in thinking this is the number one. I think for 50 years, this is the greatest Sondheim adaptation ever. You know what I mean? And we'll talk about it in a sec.
What do you mean by that?
No, but I forgot. Honestly, it's a shame because I forgot about this when you had said like the gap between 1 and 2 is massive. I think the gap between like 2 and 3 for me is massive. But like this is like one of the greatest films ever made. I know you disagree, Matt, but I do think just visually, the colors in this thing just pop. I know we're talking about Sondheim, but like in terms of just taking it as a film at face value, the colors,
it's important to talk about everything.
Yeah. The choreography is amazing. Everything's just so bright and colorful. The performances are great. Obviously, Rita Moreno wins her Oscar for this. I do think the weak point does come with some of the singing of some of the leads, only because it's sometimes not even them singing. It's sometimes dubbed, whatever. But it doesn't matter because the songs are so good and the lyrics are so good, specifically his lyrics. But I really do. I think it's a great pick, and there's a reason it is one of the greatest films ever made, still referred to as. And it's only overshadowed because of my love for something else. But I do think it is such a great pick. And if that other pick had been taken, I would have probably picked this one. So even though I forgot to write it down on my list because I went, okay, West Side Story. I just put West Side Story on my list, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot there were 2 until you just mentioned it. I mean, I knew there were 2, but I didn't write down 2. So
I'll give my shout outs to the other one when it's picked.
Yes.
It'll
Chris,
be picked.
I love this movie. It would have been my second pick. We might get any other one. That's the reason why I picked it.
Take it, JD.
There's still 4 other categories, Chris and JD. You can just
I love this movie. I own it in my DVD collection over there. I think it's great. I have Puerto Rican myself. I have a little issue with the brown face stuff. I think a little, but right back then, a little risky. I will leave it at that.
Yeah, it's definitely not held up in today's standards, that element, but it is one of the things where it's like, if you can excuse it for the time it was made.
Yeah, but I think Moreno fantastic. I think the changes they made, I like they switched Cole and Officer Trudgy around. It made sense in the way in the movie. We talked about the other one. I think that does it a little bit better with the placement both, but it's a great adaptation. It's funny, emotional. I feel. I mean, the movie is on alone like that. One of my favorite scenes in the original.
Yeah, it's a greatly conceived scene as well. Any other thoughts on West Side Story, Matt?
I want to give JD a chance because he didn't talk.
No, I just saw you had unmuted when I said that, so I wasn't sure if you were like gonna chime in. But JD, do you have anything?
This one I don't really. I've seen it a couple times. It was like a high school thing though. It was not. It was like during it was like during free time, during testing year, the year end of year,
when you had just classes to spare because the tests were all over and you needed to do something. Yeah.
Or like the annual testing, when you do the standardized testing at the end of the year. So yeah, there were no classes. That's all it was. So, it's been a long time since I've seen this one. So yeah, it's a good pick.
Cool. Matt?
Probably a better pick than what I'm going to choose.
I'm actually a little closer to JD on this one. It is number 3 on my list of films.
3.
3.
Well, there's
2.
I'll have to wait till I
I'm so
hear
excited
it.
to find out.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out what the other
guys.
one
I've made it clear that I really love a certain movie.
Oh, you're right.
Early on.
I don't remember.
You're right.
I don't owe my the movie that I love.
I think I also love it, so don't you worry.
Well, Dylan had an O of disgust.
No, I didn't have an O. I'm trying to think of what you said earlier. Sorry. I'll just stop talking. Here, go ahead, Matt.
No, hey, I was joking.
No, because I don't want to yuck your yum. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Anyway, this movie is number 3. It would actually be lower if it wasn't for the history of it, because there are 2 other Sondheim movie adaptations that I actually enjoy watching more than this one. I do like it. Rita Moreno is great, and so is Natalie Wood. Those are the 2 people, plus a performance of a specific song that I don't want to mention now, but it will probably surprise you how much I love that it is the one that I like from this. Really keep this one higher for me. When you own a DVD and then you buy the Blu-ray of it and you don't need that DVD anymore. I don't need 1961 West Side Story for reasons we'll talk about on Dylan's pick, I'm sure. It is the DVD I've given away. I still think it's great. I still like it. The brown face does bother me when I watch it. But again, that's a 2024 Matt problem and not necessarily a problem with the movie itself, because it was more acceptable then. It is still a problem with the movie itself, but not as big as it makes me feel when I watch it. This movie's been replaced in my mind, unfortunately, because if I want to watch West Side Story, I watch a different movie. So but I like this movie. It's just, it's not among my favorites.
Yeah. No, my O was more like an O. Like, let me think about what you said earlier.
I understand.
But now, I just read back what your number 1 pick is, and I think I know what it is. But JD, what is going to be your next pick?
So I want to be very clear. This is a number 1 pick for me.
Okay.
For me, it's going to be a controversy.
You're gonna pick some off Broadway,
Listen, JD, you once picked Baby's Day Out and Judge Judy. We are not going to be surprised by whatever you say.
I don't think if I had chosen it later, although I think based on what some of the people you are saying, I think there's a chance somebody may take it. So this is what I was alluding to earlier in the draft. This was my Sondheim cherry, if you will. This is the one they said, "Oh, do you love Little Shop of Horrors? You love Rocky Horror Picture Show? Like, there's this musical about this barber who slays people, and and they get turned into meat pies, and it was the late 1990s, so the 87 version wasn't available yet, so I had to wait till 2007, but that was stuck in my brain. So I'm choosing for my first choice the film adaptation, Tim Burton's adaptation of Sweeney Todd.
Oh, this is the one you were talking about, Matt. I totally did. It's not on my list, so I didn't think in it. I was okay. I got it. Okay.
So again, this came at a point where I was really starting to form my taste, and this was when I started to realize, music. That's why I liked those other two. Musical is a medium where you can tell all kinds of stories if you're just willing to look for them. And I think when it comes to adaptations, for me it's number one of the film adaptations, because number one, I think Tim Burton, when you're talking about material to directors, like Sondheim material to directors, I think it's a perfect pairing. Tim Burton with Sondheim, and specifically Sweeney Todd, there's a lot of crossover there. Outcasts, downtrodden of societies who are trying to, either trying to survive and find their strike of hope, or either find it or they succumb to the madness. I think there's a lot of crossover there. I think speaking about, it was brought up earlier, I think Helena Bonham Carter is my favorite version of Mrs. Lovett. I think she is said, again, not as well as some of the other people we discussed, but she understands that wit, the Mrs. Lovett's wit, really well. You can completely buy the, she can play the sympathy, and then you can also see when the betrayal comes later, how that comes. Is it a perfect adaptation? No. Is it? I'm sure there are a couple castings we can talk about, but I think Tim Burton brought a lot of care into it. Even the decisions I disagree with, like removing the Ballad of Sweeney Todd at the beginning. When he explains it, he's like, well, you're in a movie theater. It's a different medium. You're already attending this tale of Sweeney Todd. So why,
Sorry, we'll talk about it.
No, I know.
I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And also the Danny Elfman instrumental version, I rock to so hard. I think Alan Rickman, rest in peace, was a great Judge Turpin. So I think Timothy Spall, great Beatle. Mm-hmm. I think Sacha Baron Cohen as Pirelli.
Yo, Vecna's in this. Vecna is in it. He's Anthony, man.
Yeah. Anthony is such a great. I was gonna say, he's such a great casting. Even the person they got as Joanna, I'm like, she's really good. So yes, there are a couple casting. Yes, he picked his friends here or there, but I think a lot of the castings are very spot on. And yeah, I prefer actually Mrs. Lovett, Helena Bonham Carter's version of a particular song.
Matt, I'll let you talk. Yeah, because
I just need to say, I actually yes, this was my number one film. It's my favorite. See, he did it again. You guys heard it that time, right?
No, I just said wow. Like I'm just impressed. I didn't know people like this movie that much. It's more of a surprise, Matt. If you don't want me to talk, I'll mute myself.
Dylan,
here, go ahead.
Oh my God.
Let me go.
Dylan, don't you get upset.
Go ahead. Because we're not allowed
no, I'm not going to talk
anymore.
if you're not going to talk.
No, we're not allowed to react anymore. Apparently.
All right.
It's
well,
fine.
if none of you are going to talk,
I was just saying, wow. It was a
pleasant
fallback
joke.
It was like a wow. Like I didn't know you love this so
Yeah,
much.
I
It's
was calling
enlightening
back to the
information.
thing before. It was a joke. I wasn't
Okay,
trying
it's
to
okay.
tell you. You
I feel bad because I feel like I'm
We're
making
gonna
this.
cut this part out, right?
No, it airs as it airs. That's the worst part of this. I can't edit this. So,
You can
it's
edit
okay.
this.
Okay, if we want to end it after 2 hours, but if it gets longer than 3 hours, I can't download this file. Like it's too big to edit on iMovie. So we're just gonna have to keep going. It's fine. I was not meaning to be
I
any
know
sort of
you
way
weren't.
about it.
That was it was a joke. It
No,
was
no,
I
well,
was
you're making me
joking
feel
around.
bad. It's fine. Go ahead, man.
I like this movie. I think that Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd is actually really good casting. I think all of the I think the casting in this movie is almost all incredible. Like I think it's just really great casting. When you say it's not a perfect adaptation, you can't do a perfect adaptation of a stage musical. That's never ever going to happen. You can't, it's never gonna happen. I think this is as close as you're ever gonna get to a perfect adaptation of a stage musical. The Ballad of Sweeney Todd being removed does suck, but the thing that makes me dislike that the most is that Anthony Stewart Head would have had a bigger role in the movie because he was going to be the lead balladeer in the Ballad of Sweeney Todd, and that upsets me. Because it was going to be a Greek chorus of people who he had killed, and that was going to be the whole thing, and that would have been awesome. But I do get it too. I get it why you remove it, because you don't necessarily need it in this movie. But he removes the name from one of the songs, which I'm not going to say. It's the song that I mentioned at the beginning that got me into Sondheim, because they performed it in Jersey Girl. He removes the name of the song from the song, which I think is really weird. But I really like this movie. I just watched it, actually started last night, finished it this morning. And there's a lot that I wanted to talk about, but most of it includes songs. But Judge Turpin is incredible. I really like Helena Bonham Carter, but I've already mentioned that, so I will let someone else talk.
I don't agree with either of you. I say it with love.
You say everything with love, though. It's kind of an objective thing with you because it's your last name.
No, again, I'm a little biased because I saw this the first time I don't think I've ever seen a Sondheim show for the first time on a professional stage ever. Except for Sunday, because Sunday was on a professional stage. I should say in the city, in this like Broadway style medium. And when I saw it at the high school opposite Dylan and I's town, and I just thought that it was so well done and so perfectly like encapsulated what we were trying to like do, like what the show tries to do. And that was in 2011. And then in 2014, I remembered how much I fell in love with Sweeney from watching that show. And then I remember being like, oh, I can't wait to watch this. And then I watched it. And then I had so many issues with, I'm going to say, I don't think Johnny Depp is the right Sweeney. I will say that comes from a personal standpoint too. I have a very hard opinion on Sweeney, as I'm sure I have another couple hard opinions on like other roles for my own personal reasons. I just don't find him to be likable. And that for me is the biggest problem, is that I don't find him to be likable. I find everybody else to be likable. In fact, my biggest problem is that I find Judge Turpin to be very likable. And that partially, I'm sure, is just because it's Alan Rickman. But because I find Judge Turpin likable, I don't want Johnny Depp Sweeney to kill him, because I want more of him. And I think that it's partially just like visually, I actually do think that it is stunning. I think it is. And I think it does the medium, JD, of what you were talking about, why you love it so much. I think it does that perfectly, right? It feels very similar to Little Shop of Horrors and Rocky Horror. So as a film adaptation, that is its biggest success. From a standpoint of just a musical theater person, I don't love the characterizations of some of the characters, namely Sweeney, and I think kind of in what Dylan's reaction was with that, like why he takes it out. without the Ballad of Sweeney Todd, I feel like I'm not. It's like being handed a cake and being like, this is pretty good. What's missing? And they're like, oh, we didn't put sugar in because the frosting's already here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like, for me, it's like, well, I still needed the sugar. I know I'm eating cake, but I still need it. Like,
so I think part of it is this is the one I saw first. This is the first Sweeney Todd.
Important.
This is
I think this is an important distinction. I saw this first. Now, once I finally was able to get access to the 1989 version of the touring version with Anthony Hurd and and Angela Lansbury. Once I finally saw with the Ballad of Sweeney Todd in there, as I said, do I agree with it? No, but I understand why he believed he needed to take it out. Mm-hmm. When you hear why he felt, you're attending the Tale of Sweeney Todd, like you're in the movie theater already. You're not attending the Tale of Sweeney Todd. And also, like I said, would I trade that for Danny Elfman's beautiful instrumental version that I rocked to for several years? No, I would not. I mean, to me, it's not those two things. And then as for Johnny Depp, I like Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd. I understand why people don't, but I think most of the other castings are spot on. The only one I kind of don't like is Anthony. Is the only other. Jamie Bonner Carter is the only one I kind of don't like. But
we all got our spicy hot takes on.
But again, it's forgivable because he's like, for me, that's something I can easily gloss over because like he is supposed to be forgotten. He is supposed to be the dashing, naive hero. So it's easy to like, okay, I don't necessarily like that casting, but that's kind of the point. So I can kind of gloss over that and just enjoy everything else. And again, that's why I think this is number one for me.
Yeah. Chris, go ahead.
A movie had two cities, me, in a way. I loved the movie up until, I can't mention the song, but up until after Sweeney Todd solo song, and they go to duet between Miss Lovett and him about cooking people into pies. I don't know what Tim Burton did. I don't like that he cut the song out a lot. It completely missed a lot of humor from the actual song, and it played very stoically. Like, not play for laugh and not play very they heavy fun talking about it. Like you see Angela asked for Josh Williams to Angela Lansbury, George Hearn to judge it, Penn LaPome, and a bunch of people did it. It's like you miss the point of the song, and then they cut stuff out in Act 2 that bothered me as a Sweeney Todd fan. That the whole song was being cut out to sit well with me. And Maddie made a reference to that song that they cut the name out. They cut out the song a little bit to make the humor less funny. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is great. I think Alan Rickman is great. I like the new stuff they add to him. I do love the scene with him and when he sent Joanna to the asylum. That betrayal he had, I thought they were lying to me all of this, and they add a little dimension to him. I like the revenge moment. I think that is Johnny Depp's best moment when he finally do get revenge of John Turpin. That acting for Johnny Depp is why he got the Oscar nomination. I think that moment is brilliant. I don't like they cut the Baker woman stuff out a lot. I think you kind of lose the point of Sweeney Todd's point of view that you see the Baker woman at the worst part of London, and then the realization that his wife. By cutting her stuff out of the movie, you kind of lose the reveal moment, like that shock realization. This moment that you're disgusted by is Lucy at the end. Like,
I will say this is that they have a 2-hour movie. They have a 2-hour runtime.
Correct.
To do. So you're going to lose stuff.
Correct.
I get that. I do want to say that here's I already kind of alluded to it, but since Zach said that you need the Ballad of Sweeney Todd, you don't need the Ballad of Sweeney Todd. I love the Ballad of Sweeney Todd. You don't need it. It's nice to have. It's like the cake you mentioned. You don't need cake. It's nice to have it.
Okay, yeah, no, we're an hour in and we're only getting out of round one, so I will keep it brief. But I think it is one of those films. JD made a great point. It's the thing he saw first. I saw this for the first time, having not heard it anywhere else, and I did love it when I was a kid. Or not a kid. No, I guess I was a kid, which was a little fucked up for me to be watching this, but I did really like it.
You were in high school?
2007. I was 9.
Oh, sorry.
But like I liked it. I thought it was very enjoyable. I liked it, the fact that it was like an R-rated musical, which I hadn't seen a lot of at the time. I think though, as soon as you listen to any other version for me, this one gets significantly worse. I think it is one of those things that is a good film, bad adaptation, if that makes sense. Like I think if I were to just separate it from all the other Sweeney I know, it's fine and I like it, but it didn't make my top 5 for adaptations because I think what it does with the actual material, like kind of how Chris was saying, where they cut out some big moments, isn't as successful for me. I do miss the ballad. I do.
I would say it would be a worse movie if you included everything from the thing because
maybe
they wouldn't be able to cram that into a thing.
Correct.
I think it's a good adaptation.
I just think they cut the wrong stuff for me personally, and I think like I forget who was saying JD maybe that Anthony and Joanna for me are the down parts just because I think the actors aren't necessarily bringing as much to those roles, and I just don't ever find myself as intrigued with them. They could have cut their stuff down maybe a little bit more and emphasized some other stuff. I don't know what they could have changed. It just, for me, it doesn't work as well as some of the other adaptations. And I did like it at a point. So I get where you're coming from. Both Matt and JD, like it is a well done film, like in terms of the way it's shot. Like there's no just, sparing that. That's very, did I use the right word? Disparaging? I don't know the word I'm trying to find, but disputing that. That's what I was looking for. But no, like I think it has great elements, but also to Zach's point, I don't think the Alan Rickman's role is likable as much as he is just like such a character. Like you want to see this character more, not because you like him, but more just you're drawn to this character to where like you're like I don't want him to die because I like this dynamic, but I'm more invested in this character. I think is the right choice of words more so than like because he is like a creep rapist, whatever. But
he's not a good person.
Yeah, and speaking
he does
of
a very very bad thing.
Yeah. And speaking of, it's always harder to watch anything Johnny Depp in a 2020 whatever year, so that's also another part of it as well. But yeah, I think there's stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. It's not a total watch. I'm not going to be like this is a bad film, but I just don't like it as an adaptation. I think just because I love the original material so much, but also I'm the one, I haven't seen a film stage or a stage production of it, so I don't know if that would change. But just from what I've read and heard, I like the text as is. I'm just
quickly I do like their version of Toby in the movie. I think Toby was casted well as a kid. I like the angle.
Yeah, they got a really good.
My third favorite Toby behind Joe Locke, and I do love D'Angelo well from the movie.
I think we can all agree that that Pirelli is very well cast.
Yes,
very well cast.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do want to say before we move in around too, it's all out of passion, and I don't mean to ever come across like I'm dismissing someone else's love for something, or it's just we all bring our different opinions.
I
and we
swear
are
to God, it was a
opinionated
callback.
people.
It was a callback. I'm sorry that I.
No, it's fine. I misinterpreted it as like, oh, look at this asshole. But again, like that's the thing though, is like we're all so in love with the things we love. Yeah, but I also know that it's a very personal draft for people. So I want to make sure our voices are heard and that we're not judging others for disliking or liking things. But at the same time, we could also express that because I have hot takes coming up. But coming right up. Yes, Matt.
Listen. Everyone sucks but me. And your picks all suck except for JD's just now. Because
all right, we got to get moving because it's 10 p.m.
Yes, we were technically supposed to, at the time of recording, we're supposed to stop in 8 minutes, and we have 4 more rounds to go. So let's get going. Round 2, JD, how are you going to start us off here?
Whew, this is tough. Because again, I want to spread the love across everything else. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna go next.
JD said, "Keep it moving." No. Let me think a second.
Not on my watch.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go solo next.
Solo. Our first song off the board. All right.
I think I am gonna go solo next.
All right. Let's hear it.
I think that you got a lot of great group numbers to choose from. So, but I really
JD, let's go.
really like this song. And I know another person here loves this song too. Finishing the Hat from Sunday in the Park with George.
Great pick.
I think that it's right after Dot and George break up, and I think you have him interacting with. You first start with the great humor of him, like interacting with dog with the rough. It's rough. I just, but I kind of, it really, I can't think of a better song to kind of like crystallizes the artistic process in a song more than Finishing the Hat. Like you completely about a guy that there's not much about, you completely understand where he's coming from in that moment and why he can't you also understand him, why he can't relate to people, why he can't tell a certain well, we said we could talk about characters as long as we don't go too deep. You can't tell Dot that he loves her. Like that's why he can't tell Dot, because if he tells Dot that he loves her and he just kind of stops for a moment, then he kind of takes a breath for a moment. He can't. He feels like it's all going to come falling apart.
Yeah, he can't finish the hat.
He can't finish the hat.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It is. It is said. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece, and it's also very his solos. I hope somebody brings up another one. There's one that's from another musical that's very similar in structure that I love, that I almost went with, and I hope somebody talks about it.
Yeah, it kind of encompasses the whole theme of the musical as a whole in that larger scope. But I also love how the song itself doesn't finish. You know, the whole thing. It's da 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 da, and it just stops in the middle of that phrase, and I love it. It has like a proper beat to it, but it doesn't have this like definitive button. It always feels like, you know, it kind of halts in its tracks, which I love about the instrumentation of it. But that's the only thing I'd add is just the instrumentation is gorgeous. But
the song is incredible, and you guys said really great. You guys covered that. I'm going to talk about it in the show a little for a second, and it's going to be real quick. Number one, this song is a perfect illustration of why we love Mandy Patinkin. It's so heartfelt, but also a little funny at times. Like even though, like when he's showing the dog the what he's been drawing and stuff like that. What we love about Mandy Patinkin happens here, and I love Mandy Patinkin. So that's really my contribution. Everything you guys said was absolutely correct. This is an incredible song. Yeah.
This is an incredible song on my list, but good job, JD.
Yeah. Zach, anything?
I love it. It's none of you are gonna have my solo. I don't.
All right,
think.
We'll see. Are you gonna pick it now, Zach, or are you gonna pick something else?
No.
You can't pick two movies. Ha
I truly don't think that I can. Have you all picked your Broadway productions yet?
No, just me and Matt. Just me. And Matt.
I'm gonna pick my Broadway production mainly because I think that solos and group numbers are aplenty, and I think that they're all good. Character-wise, I mean, with Love It Gone, the world is open for me, which is great. She was like a high top one. Everything else kind of disperses out. So I'm going to pick my production. And I'm going to pick it because, listen, there's a lot of great ones on that list. But it just won a Tony, so I'm not going to not pick it. And it's Merrily We Roll Along, the 2023 production. And I'm glad I picked it. Listen, first of all, Harry Potter won a Tony Award.
Woo.
Second of all, won a Tony Award. He's not Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He made that clear.
Melchior Gabor. No, but so, and to be actually frank, also I was going to say Melchior Gabor won a Tony Award as well, finally, as he finally deserved to. I think what's beautiful about Merrily, specifically in this production, is that Merrily is probably the most human of all of the Sondheims. There is nothing spectacular about it in terms of, You don't have anyone killing anybody and doing this like wild murder revenge plot. You do not have fairy tales and stories. You don't have these overwhelmingly like awkward. I'm trying to allude to anyone can whistle without really worrying about it, but who cares about it? You don't have like this weird. I love anyone can whistle. I've done anyone can whistle. It is the most human, aside from Follies. Sorry, but I think that
would you like a gratuity on that tip?
Yeah, sure.
I was about to say, do you want to name any more productions?
I don't think. Okay, well, we'll see.
No. I love it. It's fine.
But what I
love it. Get it?
What I love about Merrily is that in and of itself, it is encompassing what theater is, and it is a combining of souls and a union of people who care about each other and partner up with each other, and the overwhelming difficulty of what it is to partner up with people that you love and people who you care about so much, and maneuver through that with them while not trying to absolutely strangle them. And also like the importance of, I have a soft spot, right? I met my wife doing theater. It's a very big, huge, it's a huge component of what makes Merrily what it is. And the thing about this production, and I mean, I don't think there's a single person on this panel who has seen it yet. I entered that lottery. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it.
I enter that lottery every day. I want it.
Just got peak jealousy already.
I enter it every day. One day I'll get it. Before July 7th, I guess.
So you have like 14 days.
But what I love about it is John Groff and Daniel Radcliffe and Lindsay Mendez and that entire cast, but the three of them in general, like they exemplify what it means to do that show, because the show is not what it is if it's not them. Right? Like it is not the success that it is. And it's not just because Daniel Radcliffe is an actor known for playing one of the most beloved characters in the entire world. It's not because John Groff has that meme about him from Hamilton. It's not because Lindsay Mendez is like the best Elphaba there was. It is because the three of them care so deeply for one another that they are so much more beyond just them as actors. They are friends. They get to do a show with their family every night. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, like, I think when this pro shot comes out, like, this is going to be jump to the most talked about Sondheim we have ever. Yeah. Well, I really do.
Kind of is too. And another thing that you haven't touched on about this specific production is that the original was a flop. It closed in a week, and the fact that this new one is now the most expensive ticket on Broadway. That is just one of the greatest like redemption stories of any piece of art ever. The fact that the piece of work that people want to see most when they go to New York is not Wicked, it's not Lion King, it's not Hadestown. It is Merrily We Roll Along, which is just so cool. And it's not, like you said, because of who's in it, and because of the Harry Potter of it all. It's because they want to see that show because it's a great vision.
And that I've said this to everyone who will listen to it. Daniel Radcliffe is one of the most wonderful actors of our time, and I will stand by that. I know I might be like alone in that, but what I love about him is that he's human, and I can't help. I don't see Harry Potter when he's on stage. Like when he was there accepting his Tony, I didn't see it. But what I did see is someone who it's so easy to root for him. And that's so important in that show. And it's so easy to love John Groff and absolutely hate him at the same time because he's so smarmy. And Lindsay Mendez is the perfect glue that keeps them together. She is pregnant and doing that show because she cares that much. She loves it. That's it. I had to take it.
Yeah. I saw this back in October with my family. Oh, I love this show. I think.
Let me enter the lottery real quick.
Yeah, the performances, the story, it's relatable, it's touching. Daniel Radcliffe, who I didn't know could do Sondheim, had this song. I'm not going to mention it because on my list for solo. That is one of the most incredible 5-minute song that he had to sing. There's very little room for breathing room during the song.
And in an accent, which is not his own accent. He method acts. He 6 out of 7 days a week from Tuesday to Sunday, he speaks in an American accent when he goes and gets coffee. When he gets coffee at the coffee shop, like when he's out and about on the town, he's speaking in an American accent. Monday is his only day he gets to speak in British because it's when he's with his family, is what he said, which is really cool.
And Lizzie Mendez, who should have won the Tony Award that night, I think she you cannot have a performance without the three of them. I think all three of them give phenomenal performance. Jonathan Groff is I walked out of the show and he tried to win the Tony. It's all over. I really had that happen to me with a Broadway show.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's definitely in my top tier favorite revival last couple of years on my show. My third favorite revival the last couple of years.
Nice.
I think I said. Sorry, Matt. Do you want to go first? I think I said this during our Tony watch along. I said, I wish I had seen this version as opposed to the bootleg production I did see, because the guy who played Franklin Shepard, it was a West End production in 2013, and the guy who played Franklin Shepard, he did this Kermit the Frog impression when he went younger to show his naivete, and it was when I heard that, when I had that impression in my head of this Kermit the Frog impression as he was going younger, I'm like, where's Kermit the Frog? Where's the Muppets? Which, by the way, if we do talk about another Sondheim movie, somebody chooses another Sondheim movie, we could talk about the Jim Henson production that almost was, but I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. I kind of want, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I want to see the Muppet production of
Merrily. Well, I mean, it's kind of what the 2011 Muppets is about, old friends growing apart and coming back together at the end.
Yeah, but it was because that was the version that I watched, I'm like, it's still a great concept. Yeah. It is a classic Sondheim concept. I'm like, some of the songs are really, you can still see that Sondheim touch in all the songs.
Yeah.
I think, Linklater, when we finally see it, when we're all some of us are in our 40s, and some of us will be in our 50s, and some of us will be on this panel will be even older. When we finally see that, version, I think the aging, because you can see it in real time, I think that's a good way to do it. Or this version sounds like they've got the right cast that can play, but you really need people who can play both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I live to see the Linklater movie. No, I really, really like this show. Not the revival, because I haven't seen it. I've only seen, literally all I've seen is what they showed at the Tonys. But I really love this play. I was thinking about it the other day that because this is not his only flop. Sondheim actually has a lot of flops, and but a lot of them, even though they are flops, come back around. People eventually will find them and love them. It's to me, and I don't know to everybody, Sondheim is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. And it kind of reminds me of the great artists whose work did not hit in their time. Now, he isn't the case because he's got a lot of hits and a lot of stuff comes back and he got to see success. But it feels like with this one hitting after his death and how a lot of his stuff flopped and then came back around, it almost feels like he's just one of those classic artists who isn't appreciated at the right time when they should be appreciated, or isn't appreciated when their work is fresh. So I just want to say that I really like the show. I really love those characters. I did see that 2013 off the West End production, and I thought it was good. I like the show. I'm glad it's getting the recognition that it deserves now, because the show is just really good. I like the way that it's done in reverse chronological order, and how and the songs are really great. It's just a lot of fun. So
sweet.
I'm excited for the pro show.
Yeah, me too. All right, Chris, you're up. What are you gonna pick? You already have your character.
Matt, you don't hate me. I don't pick film. I don't
Chris, hear me out.
No, Chris, don't do it. Just take it.
Take it, Chris.
Listen, I had to choose the other one. I like half of the other one, and the other half of me to top out. Somebody pick I'm going to go with West Side Story 2021. This is one of the better remakes in the last couple of years and stuff. I was nervous going in. I love Steven Spielberg. I do. Have been doing great lately and up to that point. But besides the one way we'll talk about it if we want to, that it's a wicked part of the movie. Everybody else finally on cylinder. Like Fast, wonderful riff. I think he's better than the original riff. I think he bring more
A lot.
different to it and make it hateable, but you also like him. I think Bernardo fantastic. Billy Elliot kid, like here.
Yes.
Rachel Zegler, amazing first performance ever. Like, even though she's not a good person in real life, I know a couple of my friends who know her personally and yet hear a good thing about her in personal life. I honored both. She is amazing and she deserves the award she got for West Side Story. Like, I think that scene alone during somewhere you see her walking from the police station after she identified Bernardo is heartbreaking, and the duet between her Rachel Zegler, one of the best moments like of the film. I think that acting line and thing line. Rita Moreno, they could have easily got anybody else, but she killed it at Dark Widow. I think what they do with her character, like her interacting with the Jess and the Shock, and like when she gets to sing the song that usually gets sung by Tony Maria in other productions, I think it's more heartbreaking, and you think about the realization of the song, what it meant through her point of view. It's fantastic. I think the dancing is great. I think hot take, I kind of like the Shock song more in the remake than I do the original. I like it being out in the street and everything, and the interaction with both the women and Shock men. I think, and so Al Gore, we can talk about him. He's the wicked part of the movie. I think the moment where he's good at Tony, but he only has one really bad moment in the movie to the end. Like that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is like, I think he seems a lot worse because we have our own opinions of him than he would if he didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I still think it wouldn't be a great performance, but I think it's made even worse because of the
Ansel, what's his face?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do see, I think that is the weakest element of the movie, but I think Steven Spielberg is still such a good director that he makes it work regardless. And because his center of a lot of that film, yet I do still think it works. It's not like I'm watching it avidly annoyed, like I would be if a different director maybe were handling it, or if, it had been directed differently. But I just think this is one of the great movie musicals, period. Not just remakes, not just of this like generation of this ilk. I think it is hands down for me the best Sondheim film adaptation, only rivaled by the original. But I think what the original does well, this one does even better, in my opinion. I know, Zach, you like the original better, but like, and that's a fair case. Like, that's a perfect comparison. I think they are both like, it's like 1A, 1B. But I do think like the West Side Story itself is one of the only Sondheim musicals that I feel like, and again, maybe it's also because it's not his music, it's only his lyrics, so there's less of that like kind of pitter-pattery kind of speak singy that you get in a lot of other stuff that doesn't aid itself well to an adaptation, that I think this film does, because it does feel a little bit more grand, a little bit more symphonic, and I do think it does have just a really good sense of place that I think aids itself well to a film adaptation because it's in the streets of New York. There's a tangibility to it. I just think it's really one of those great films, and I think it's just one of those films that I think was so underappreciated at the time because someone or many people decided they wanted to see 3 Spider-Men 3 times as opposed to seeing 3 Spider-Men twice and this once. So and that's fair. But JD, you saw this in theaters, right?
I did see this in theaters.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the people who said, "Oh, there's a West Side Story movie out, and then there's a movie I've seen 3 times. I'm gonna go see that movie a 4th time, as opposed to seeing this again." And that's kind of just my own personal thing where I'm like, I don't know. But I do really like this film.
I think the thing that West Side Story 2021 did the best was they gave us Rachel Zegler, and for the love of God, that's pretty much the best thing that could have come out of the post-COVID era. So much so that she has some of the best music that I mean, her vocals on Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is probably some of my just favorite overall music in general. And I know that has not really too much to do with West Side Story, but I think what makes
it does.
But I think the thing that does matter is that her performance in West Side is like jaw dropping. and the story of her getting that role, I think, is so much more. Is a lot of the reason that it's so good too. Is that like, you know, like Steven Spielberg like handpicked her. Like it wasn't just like a, oh, you know, like we'll get a famous, like we'll get a name. He said, no, this girl is it. And he said she walked in and sang, and he went, oh, I know who it is.
Yeah. That's the kind of
It's
stuff you don't
you.
hear about anymore. Like that was such a thing of like I feel like older eras where it's like that's how it should be. It should be a talent. It shouldn't be who's got the biggest name. Though I guess because of its box office, I guess maybe there is something to be said about having a draw in a name. But
Right.
I do like how it kind of gave voices to rising stars and Broadway talents that like the film goers hadn't seen yet, like Mike Feist, Ariana DeBose. Yeah,
Brian
Ariana DeBose
Darcy
as well.
James,
and Brian Darcy James. Yeah, like all these names that like I feel
Dude,
like
Mike Feist in that movie is crazy.
yeah, but like, I don't think he gets I don't think he gets challengers without it. You know,
no,
like,
I don't think so.
That's the greatest thing is
or the bike riders. He doesn't get the bike. He doesn't get any of it without this.
Yeah, isn't it?
I would say quickly, I love what they do with Chino in the remake. I think to make him more sympathetic, that when he does end up turning
Janus Plinth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Janus Plinth.
And that's one of the qualms I have with the movie is that I think Chino and Maria have way more chemistry than Tony and Maria, but Tony and Maria still have chemistry, which is important. But Matt, I'll let you or JD, whoever I don't care.
Matt,
either one.
I went first last time. Matt, go first.
Matt, go ahead.
I was about to give Mike Feist his due, but you guys did pretty well. I'm going to come back to him. I do want to say this is the best Spielberg movie since 1993. I really love this movie. As I said, the original movie was one that I like, but it's not it. And I watched it a lot when I was younger, but that's really the only version of it that I had. This one I felt like kind of realized the potential that this musical had, and that's really like it. Ariana DeBose, I absolutely love her. She deserved her Oscar. I will not hear unkind words about her. Thank you. And Mike Feist was criminally snubbed. Of an Oscar nomination. Because I came out. That's the main thing that I came out. I already knew I loved Ariana DeBose, so I wasn't worried about that. And I didn't know that I loved Mike Feist yet, but I did because I listened to the Dear Evan Hansen soundtrack so much that I did not realize that was the same person until after. But when I came out of that movie going, Mike Feist, give him the Oscar, give him all of the awards, give him everything, give him all of the movies. I was just in awe of him. I absolutely loved his version of Riff. It's so much better than the original. And I just loved it. And he's got a fan for life now. And Challengers is my favorite movie of the year. So, and a lot of it has to do with
nomination, Oscar now.
I'm hoping they rectify the Oscar situation this year, but who knows?
Yeah. I hope so. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I'd hope so.
I don't know if it's going to happen either, but I'm really hoping. But
I will also say nominated him. They were the only ones.
Yeah.
For West Side.
I will say that Bernardo, the Prince of Cats himself, Bernardo, I really like that character. It was kind of a backstory for me, but I'm a big fan of Romeo plus Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann movie. And one of my favorite performances in all of film is John Leguizamo's Tybalt. And so and that's basically the role that Bernardo is in West Side Story, is the Tybalt role. And so I have kind of a love for that character itself, and I think he's incredible. The guy who I don't remember his name, but the guy who played Bernardo is
Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot kid.
David Alvarez.
Yes, there we are.
Billy Elliot. No, it's true. I mean, in that case, so is Spider-Man in that way.
It's true.
Tom Holland was Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot.
Cool. JD, any last thoughts on West Side Story 2021?
I will say, I said it's a great movie. It's a great adaptation. I think the reason why I have it ranked slightly lower for me besides the the fact that for sentimental I like it for Sweeney Todd is because Ansel Elgort, outside even the stuff of him as a person, he's not bad, but I feel like he's like at a 3, and like everybody else is like at a 5. The fact that he's at a 3 and everybody is at a 5, I find it really distracting when he not really when he acts, but when he sings. Like everybody else is just so perfect that like when you see you notice the difference, and it can take you out of it. And that was my struggle with that's why it's ranked. Another reason why it's ranked slightly lower. Again, but everybody else, Rachel Ziegler, everybody, what you said about Rachel Ziegler, Ariana DeBose, we all love. I think we joined the Tony during our Tony watch along. We were all we like she's our queen. We all have a crush on her. She can do no wrong. Yeah, everybody else, even the person who played Chico, Josh Rivera, I think everybody else is just so well perfectly cast that he's noticeable.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will say this, that Tony's just it's also that Tony's the most boring character in the story, in the thing.
He's a straight man,
he is a straight man. He's forgettable in the original for me as well. Like, so I think that Elgort does fine. I'm not going to talk about what he did, all that stuff. I think he's fine in the role, and the fact that he's not as good as everyone else just feels fine. It feels right. Like, so it's fine.
That's fair.
All right, so I'm up, and I'm struggling because it's just me and Matt to pick a film. So it's like, do I think he's going to pick my film? I don't know. I still have 3 films on the list, but I don't feel passionately enough about those films to be like, I need to get around to. So I'm just going to let the film fall to me later. I'm going to go with a show that hasn't been represented yet. And I'm going to first ask if this counts as a solo. If it doesn't, we can veto it, and I'll pick another solo from this show. Is Getting Married Today, can we count that as a solo?
I would.
I debate about that because you had like the person.
I know. Well, there's it cuts back and forth, but
I would count that as a solo.
It is a solo song that has interludes with the orchestra. But I would love to hear you out.
I'd count it.
Here's
Matt,
I also
if anyone's vetoing it,
I'd be doing it.
Chris veto. Anyone else veto Getting Married Today as a solo?
No.
Okay, so it's going to be my pick. But Matt, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I also was debating this. I had it in solo. I moved it to group, but then I re-listened to it the other day. And his parts are almost dialogue, even though he's singing them, and the chorus part is basically the music. So to me it's her song.
Yeah, it's that's how I look at it too. Like there are multiple people singing in it, but it is inherently a song that character sings.
It depends on the version. Because
that's also true too.
Like the Matt Doyle one and the guy playing Fiera and Wicked. Like you had the female, wedding thing, interacting with them at 7 points throughout the song.
Yes, like, and another thing is like it can be a solo song that like people are on stage doing stuff. There's another solo from Company where like someone's singing and there's a lot going on in the stage. That's fine. I'm just saying like it's primarily her or his song, so it's like I'm gonna just take that as the solo. My other solo should be no surprise. Someone's probably gonna bring it up later, at least in honorable mention, so I won't say now. But Getting Married Today, the reason I went with that solo from Company is because I want to represent Company. It's the only Broadway show I've seen of Sondheim's. I've seen like recordings of others, but it's the only Sondheim show I've seen live in a Broadway setting. And I just think that production was amazing. And I forget his name, the actor who won the Tony for it, for playing this role. But I love the gender bent nature of it. Matt Doyle, yes, Matt Doyle.
Yeah.
But I love Matt Doyle's rendition of it. But I had heard the song a bunch, and I think it's inherently performed as a solo a lot too, and like cabarets and stuff. So I'm gonna count it. But also like I love one thing we haven't touched on with Sondheim is the pitter patter. He does patter better than any other artist, and I think this is just a great representation of his best patter in the fact that it's not only informing the character and the situation and the stakes, but it's also letting the lyrics be fun and playful while also showing off a really great patter for the performer and the writer, and also the patter being kind of this like racing of the heartbeat nerves of getting married thing. It's also the relatability that I think that show in general, because we haven't talked about it yet, but the show in general really, is, if not merrily, it's probably one of his more relatable shows in terms of a human level. And I think that kind of song can appeal to a lot of people watching it. So I think it just hits all the boxes and what you would look for in a great Sondheim song. It's not one of those like a really emotional moments that some of his other solos are, but I also wanted a little bit of versatility because coming up later, I might go a little bit darker, a little bit more, but here it's a little more fun, a little more playful, and I just think it's always a scene stealer as well. Like when you get to that moment in the show, it brings the house down. So Getting Married Today is going to be, and it's not Getting Married Today, it's Getting Married Today, which is a very interesting artistic choice.
Yeah.
Well, by the end of the song,
she's getting married today.
She's getting married today.
Yes,
But I love this song. It's hot. It's like I said, I'm moving it back and forth on my list, but it was on both lists of solos and group numbers. I really love the song. I love the Sondheim songs that you were talking about, like pitter patter, but where someone has to talk really, really fast. And he does a lot of those. They're always so good. And the way that, and to do that, you kind of have to trust the performer to be able to do the thing properly, and I love the trust that he puts in. Like, I'm going to write this thing, I'm going to make it like this, and I'm just going to trust that the performer is going to be able to do the thing to execute this in the proper way, which I love. Mm-hmm. It is a very relatable song. I agree that Company is one of his more relatable shows, but there's also something that for me I don't relate to, especially the main character a lot. So so there's that, but the side characters I do relate to a little bit, like her. She's actually one of my favorite parts of that story with his relationship to her, and I don't know, I really love that song. And the performance, basically all the performances I've heard are always really, really great. So,
yeah. Anyone else on Getting Married? Yeah, Chris.
I love this song. This was song I was struggling with. The three companies I have on my list on both sides. I was struggling a lot with one to pick. Matt Doyle, to me, was a scene stealer. That song. I'm like, that the hardest I laughed that year watching a Broadway show is Not Getting Married Today. Shout out to the guy who did it in London, who played Fiera in the Wicked movie. He also did a brilliant job.
Jonathan Bailey. Yeah. Jonathan Bailey, who is Anthony Bridgerton. I'm a Bridgerton stan, everyone.
You go on YouTube, watch it bootleg of the way he do it. It's hysterical. Like, it's very different from Matt Doyle, but he does it really brilliantly. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun song. It's a relatable song. I love that scene itself with the song. I think anybody who goes through marriage, like the cold feet, it's very relatable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't go to the trope of like bowing out and leaving at the altar either. It actually follows through, which I really appreciate as someone who's been burned by many characters in many shows.
And it also leads to another great song afterward, but that'd be my honorable mention.
Yes. Anything else on Not Getting Married, JD or Zach? Anything?
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah, it is. I said it's a good choice. I thought you were gonna go with another solo because it's like the embodiment of living in New York, but
True. Yeah.
But
Zach's like, I'm not gonna say the name of the song, but I'm gonna sing it because that is not gonna be.
There's so many songs.
Matt, go ahead. What's gonna be your next pick?
I'm with you on the films. I'm down to 2 because there's one that's just never going to be on my list. Actually, I guess 3 because there's 7, right? Anyway, not the point. Anyway, I'm just gonna let it see who ends up with what on that.
Tussling it out in round 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with character right now. Not because I fear this being stolen, but she deserves to go early. Oh no. It is my board is going to look look very samey because it's not who you think it is. She's my number 3. But number 2 on my list after Mrs. Lovett is from Into the Woods. I would love to spread the stuff around, the love around, but I just can't not choose the baker's wife. She is my favorite character obviously she's my second favorite Sondheim character. She's my favorite character in Into the Woods. She is a person who is her own person who the show itself treats as the wife, the spouse of another character, so much so that her name is his occupation. And
his occupation's wife.
His occupation's wife. But she sees herself as something else. In fact, she sees herself as someone who is not meant for this story. I am in the wrong story.
What am I doing here? I am in the wrong story.
Yes, exactly. She sees herself as someone else. And what I love about it is number one, she's so funny. Joanna Gleason is just so incredible. She originated the character, so that does give her credit in the creation of this character anyway. But her performance as this character is part of why I love it so much. She's so funny. You feel those moments. Some of her, I'm not going to tip songs, but her song right before the kind of end of her arc for a little bit before she comes back is just so good.
Yeah.
And she's so good at that song. I don't know. I love the baker's wife. She is my lady, and I'm very, very glad that if I didn't get Miss Lovett,
my lady.
Yeah, I'm so glad that if I couldn't get Mrs. Lovett, that I get the baker's wife.
The Matt's lady's baker's wife.
Yeah.
No, I love it. It's a great pick. I think it's, of all the characters, it's the most fascinating because it's like kind of like what I said at the top. Like, it's not a fairy tale pre-existing character that everyone could be like, oh, that is a cool interpretation of so and so. It's not. It's like her own entity, which I love. The only thing I hate is that they do kill her off, but I guess it is necessary for his story. But it is also one of those things. Sorry, yeah,
I'm kidding.
No, but it's one of those things where I'm always frustrated because I always want her to have like that great final bit of closure, but she does. But it's tough, always tough to see it happen because I'm like,
As many times as I've seen this show, every single time I think, God, I wish she would just survive there. I get why she does, and in a way, it's not just to further the man's story. Like, it's part of her story. Her story is being written, but she makes
the wrong choice. She makes the wrong choice.
Her story is being written for her, and she says, "I don't want to be part of the story." So in that way, it's almost like she is taking control of her own story. Unfortunately, it leads to her death, which is saying. But when I watch that, and then we get to a song that happens that she is not included, I'm like, wouldn't it be so great if the baker was singing with the baker's wife at that song? It's like, that's so good. But she comes back at the end and does the finale, re-sings that song. And it's such a great moment.
Yeah,
it's such a great moment that it's kind of worth what happens to her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love Into the Woods, like I always say. Baker White in my second favorite character in Into the Woods. Somebody might bring up the other one. I see Joanna Gleason for one of my favorite performance of Baker White up until 2022. I think Sarah Bareilles, who nobody was expecting her to be good.
Oh man, dude, she was so good.
She stole the show, and she made the Baker White her own, like the funniness, the little interaction with the Baker. And Brian DeArchie, Neil Patrick has, I think, both.
That role proved to me that Sarah Bareilles is a performer, not just of her own music.
Mm-hmm.
And her moment, the song she sings, Matt alluded to, she make it like she's telling a story, but I thought was interesting. Make it more like you can understand every decision that she's going to sing that song. And she is, to me, my favorite Baker White. I've seen her twice Into the Woods with Neil and with Brian, both fantastic chemistry with both. she should have won a Tony that year. To be honest, I love Kimberly Kimber, but I would have gave it to Chaparral.
She, the baker's wife, Matt Graypick, has the most compelling music in that whole show. Her music is the most compelling. It's the most informative. It is the most built on storytelling. Everything she sings is purposeful. This doesn't fall into any category, but her Justify the Beans is such a meme, but it's the best part of her. It's the best part of Act 1 for me because it is the beginning of her story arc, and arguably her story arc is probably the most important because her story arc sets forth in motion every other story arc, and if she doesn't do what she does, then nothing else happens. And she is the pivotal character. It is her. It's so ironic that she says so many times that it's not her story because that entire musical is her story. She just happens to leave it early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I like what you're saying. You're absolutely right. Every character kind of does what they do because of their involvement with her. Cinderella's story doesn't happen if she doesn't get involved in that. Like, there's a lot of that. That's a very good way of putting it.
And one of the things that I love about it the most with her character is, in the beginning of the show, a group number, if you might, another character says, "I wish we had a child," and she sings, "I want a child." She does not repeat. She does not repeat the same words. Yeah. It's very different, and I love that because it's just little things. If you pay attention, you learn a lot more about every character. She is the most compelling character in that whole show because you don't pay attention to her. You pay attention to another female character and her arc. And in reality, if you're just paying attention, I could go on. We're good.
Almost like another character who should be paying attention to one character. But anyway, JD,
she's the stronger of the baker, and it's so ironic that she's called the baker's wife because she's the stronger of the
JD. We were a boy.
When you tip a pick because your pick is the name of the pick with the wife.
Yeah. It's what I'm sorry. It was going to happen.
We said we could name it.
It was going to happen. I was going to have a step at some point, but my point is like it's ironic that she's the stronger of the two characters throughout the whole thing. She is the one who is constantly resisting what the story is like you guys said. She is resisting at every single turn what the story is trying to tell her to do. And she is just refusing. And it is at the end when she does she's a brilliant character. I think everybody, again, I don't want to say any more because I think everybody really covered it.
Yeah. All right, so round 2 is in the books and we're 2 hours in. At this rate, it's gonna be.
We gotta move, people. I gotta leave at like 11:15.
It's okay. We'll get it quick. Matt, what's gonna be your next pick?
All right. So my next one is I'm gonna go with my solo. And the only reason I'm gonna do that is because my number one is also happens to be probably the most famous Sondheim song, and that is from A Little Night Music, and it's called Sin in the Clowns. I don't know that anybody was going to pick it because it is probably because it is probably his most because that's you got the name on there. I'm sorry. Because it is probably his most famous song. I felt like I needed to go for it as soon as I could. Sin in the Clowns. Here's the thing about A Little Night Music. It's not very popular today, but at the time, it was such a hit. It was so big that everybody knew about A Little Night Music. Sin in the Clowns was okay. We all know that we love Screen Junkies and everything, but when they made the Joker on his trailer, they criticized it for the people on the subway singing Sin in the Clowns like, what is this guy, Sondheim genius or something? Sin in the Clowns was in the top 40 or something with two different artists in the 70s. It was unbelievably successful. It was it was so well known. It is not weird that people on a subway sang Sin in the Clowns.
It's a song that became more popular than the musical it was from.
Yeah, which the musical is very, very popular at the time, but it has not endured the way that Sin in the Clowns has. But in context of the show itself, I think it's a great song, but it works even better in context of the show itself, because the whole thing about Sin in the Clowns, it's a reference to an old theater practice, which was if the show is boring the audience or is not hitting with the audience very well, you sent in clowns to hype them back up. In the context of the show, A Little Night Music, she's saying, send in, like, this is not going the way I want it to. Send in the clowns. Let's liven this up. But the best part of this song is toward the end when she says, "Send in the clowns. Don't bother. They're already here." Meaning, we are already the fools here. You don't need to send in the clowns because we are the clowns. Which is something that I absolutely love. It's a great song. And one that I think it's a lot of people know and didn't realize was Sondheim. But in context of the show, it's also incredible. True.
What's your favorite version of it? Like favorite performance of it?
The guy on the subway in Joker, I think he's my favorite.
Oh, that's like 10 comedy points. Mine's always Judi Dench, and specifically Judi Dench doing it at like the Sondheim birthday special or whatever, where she's like, it's just so quiet and everything's soft and it's Judi Dench, and I'm like, oh my god, it's perfect. Yes. Great song, always brings me to tears. In a show that I'm not as familiar with, I had to read it in school and perform a song from it in school, but that song has endured. I love it.
Yeah.
So
it's a good show.
This is my top 3 favorite themes of Sondheim solo song. This is the song that I love. I got to see him with Bernadette Peter back when she did it, when she was played with Cassidy Jones. That is my favorite interpretation song. So what she did, and she broke down doing it, and it was just you felt the sadness of the song, like the irony of, like, her and Frederick admitting they still love each other, and then it's too late, and the irony of we need to send in the clown because nothing good gonna happen. And when that portrayed the woundedness so freaking bad. I love my favorite moment when after he leaves and she starts singing again, and her mental breakdown at that point, that she just lost him.
Right. Which and it comes back around in the finale in a totally different meaning, which I really, really love about it as well.
Yeah. But that will always be my favorite Desiree. I love a lot of the other one.
Zach or JD, any send in the clowns remarks? Any?
I don't love it.
I was going to say I get the choice. I get the choice. The musical was very much. I get why people like Little Night Music. Not for me.
I think for me, it's going to need to be, and I think this is just a Sondheim constant. It's going to take being a part of a production to really, for me, put it into the perspective of how much it means and what the weight is. Mm-hmm. But I understand the pick. I understand people's love for it. It is just not a solo that I love, but I will never yuck anyone's yum for it.
Let me contextualize it a little bit. Just something about me. I'm a big lyric guy. I'm very lyrics are more important to me than music in a song. And or even like how good the person is singing. What are the words saying? And the fact that it has just this double meaning gets points for me. The whole like don't bother, we're already here, like that whole metaphor also really works for me. So the lyrics in it are what makes it for me. It may not be as personal as some of the other ones that I have on my list, but as far as a song goes, it does hit the
for sure
the notes that I want. So
nice. Cool. So my group number, because I think my character is saved because Matt is the only other person I think would have taken it, and he already took a character. And with film, it's either me or Matt for that. So I'm gonna go with group number. And I'm gonna go with because it was my gateway to Sondheim, so I want to give it its due, and I don't really have it in many other categories right now in terms of the other things I want to pick. So I'm gonna give a little homage to Into the Woods, and I decided between going more emotional or going more like what is just the more iconic song. I think I'm gonna go more for iconography because the entire prologue of the opening of Into the Woods, which I'm counting as a group number, the prologue is kind of my gateway to Sondheim. It was the stuff that I was just so invested in, this kind of like repeating motif. I wish, but also this kind of blending and the immediate just edit. It's almost like an edited sequence, even though it's not a film. It's a musical, but like it's just so perfectly woven is the better word than edited. But like the way it just pings and pongs back and forth between different characters and different scenarios is just so impressive. You get the great witch rap, which is just excellent. And then you also get, or sorry, as JD said, a witch rap. But like I just love that rap. And then you get the motif, the Into the Woods, dun, 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 like that. Then you get your like, okay, now it started, and I just love it because it gives us everything we need to know about every single character, what they want, all the side characters, and what obstacles they pose, and then what the whole objective of the story is going to be, while also giving you that warm, fuzzy fairy tale feeling. And Little Red stuff in her face with bread. It's very fun, and I just think it's a great opening. I think Sondheim really knows how to really find the great moments throughout, but in terms of opening a show, like this is the best, in my opinion, opening to any show ever. So for me, it's going to be my group number, even though there is another number in the Woods I think is a little bit more sentimental, a little bit more like beautifully sung and beautifully written. I think this is just one of the best group numbers in any show, and definitely my favorite opening sequence of any show, musical, movie, anything. So Into the Woods prologue is going to be my group.
You keep taking a lot my pick. Like
I know we took Send in the Clowns and the prologue back to back. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I love the prologue. Didn't almost to know anything when I got Into the Woods. It take a long time for me to come on stage because that prologue so freaking long.
It's a very long one.
But I love the witch rap. I love the red bit. I love the comedy bit with Cinderella and the stepsister with the hair going back and forth. Like, it's just a perfect song to introduce you to character, and if you get the right people, you can nail it and show how amazing cat can be.
And who doesn't love a narrator too? You get a narrator.
Yeah.
Most musicals don't have a narrator. That's a film thing, but we made it cool again, and we brought it into musical.
Amazing. Like I will mention people because I just might mention a production of it. My next pick.
Okay.
Matt. Did you know that at one point someone says, "I wish I had a child," and then the beggar's wife says, "I want a child," in that song?
I didn't. That's crazy.
No. That I love. Obviously, I love everything about this production. So, or this play, musical. So, but this is as Chris was talking about. A perfect way to introduce all the characters and to make you instantly understand them. You don't need any more introduction to you don't need any more about these characters. Once this prologue is over, you can just have them start their journey, their adventure, because everything is set up and it's just brilliant. It's an incredible opening. It does. Here's the thing. It's great. It's catchy. It's funny. But it also has a mechanical purpose that works really, really well. So yeah.
And just those iconic first dum 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 dum. You hear that? You know.
Yep.
Zach?
It does the thing, doesn't it?
JD?
No, it's perfect.
Or Zach, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, I think it's great. I could recite it for you right now.
That's another thing too. It's like what Matt said about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I just know everything. I know every word of it. I think what I love about it the most is that it's challenging to a director and a cast because you can do it. There's like the usual way, which is just kind of in a line segmented, but you can do it differently, and it offers a lot of creative. I love how much creative liberty it offers a director to do something exciting and new and change up the formula a little bit. Like I would love to see a production of Into the Woods where the beginning of the show happens on a turntable and it just like consistently goes, and then it halts in these different areas and people can walk outside of it, because I think that the only knock I would have for the Into the Woods opening is that it's tired sometimes. It's very samey. Every production does it the same, but that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad... I say it's a knock, but it's not really a knock, because why would you do it any differently? Because it is perfect.
Why are people fixing this not broken thing?
Right. Why are people... The wheel still turns.
Why isn't that
let's reinvent it.
Yeah.
Let's reinvent it. But I do think that, like, to your point, and I mean, I don't know who else has their production, but there is a production very recently that just added small little touches, like a puppet, you know, and I
Chris
think
is gonna kill Zach.
like adding small things like that do enough to keep it exactly what it needs to be. But I mean, it's just, you love it. It's the most exciting part of the first act, because you just are ready. You're ready. You're like, oh, it's been 10 minutes. Let's go. Because you're ready after it.
JD,
did I mention you're ready?
Prologue.
I mean, I think you guys said all that needed to be said about it. I love that number. As I said, I think it's a big it starts out strong. It is a good strong. You want your opening number to come out of the gates and lock you in. And it does it. It does it really well for all the reasons you guys described.
What does it do that Matt, that the theme songs did? They set the tone.
Yes.
So that's a throwback to last draft day, because we're I gotta get the bits in there. Speaking of, you can vote at the end of this for who is going to be the rampion to your champion of this draft as we go on to pick 3. See what I did there, Chris? You have gotten Merrily stolen from you by Zach. You had Send in the Clown stolen from you by Matt. You had the prologue stolen from you by myself. What are you going to pick and own as your pick, Chris?
You know what? Let's talk about production. What can I talk about? Oh, look. Let's talk about it. My favorite revival the last couple of years been the 2022 revival Into the Woods. I think this is one of the best revival the last couple of years of Broadway. This is all brilliantly casted. There's no one weak link in this cast. You got Brian Deontay James. You got Sarah Bareilles. You have Gavin Creel, who gave one of the most funniest portrayals I think in relevant festival I've ever seen in a production. Joshua Henry take upon the Prince and made it one of his own, and him just falling on the stage during agony, one of the most funniest moments I think for Into the Woods that made me just die to laughter. Like, you got Julia Lester, who nobody knew who she was besides those who were High School Musical and musical TV series. And she still lit at Little Red. Like, this is one of the best interpretations I've seen of Little Red, and she deserved the Tony Award nomination she got that year. Like, you got college students playing Jeff fantastic. Everybody's filing. You got the original Christmas Eve playing that mom, and she's hysterical. Like, she does stuff with that world that made me die laughing. Like, you're never ever trying to get him. Like, her taunting the giant before she died. One more funny. Like, and Milky freaking White, that alluded to it. Should have got his own Tony, because that what they do, it made it his own character, and it's hysterical. Like, he dancing along with It Take Two. Like, the little moment, like when he died, that it's just funny and shocking. My favorite moment with Milky White and the Baker, just like Baker had to get off stage. He'd literally take the puppet from the guy that's controlling the puppet and run off stage and leave the guy that's standing there, just like, no. Like, yeah. And I love it. I give it a good shout out. The encore production of it is also really good. Neil Patrick Harris with fantastic, Renee Goldberg with great. Patricia Miller, fantastic, which it did not defeat. Like, this was the more perfect cast I ever seen. More than Central Park, more than the original. Like,
it's cool that when something's so beloved and then it's like, let's time to revive it, then it's just like all the Broadway royalty that's not working is like, I'll do it, and you get like Brian Darcy James and Patina Miller in the same show, and, then, you're like,
very minimalistic step, but what they did with the giant wife, they had these like big shoots and 2 people controlling it. You just hear it like, you know, making movement.
Oh, that's cool.
Whenever the giant speak, and it's scary as hell. Like,
nice.
Go watch it. It's brilliant. Like,
yeah. Zach, you're the only one here who's seen it aside from Chris. So I haven't seen it, so I can't talk on it. But the pictures I've seen and the recording I listened to is very good. Yeah. I just haven't seen any video.
Shout out Kennedy Kanagawa. Milky White's puppeteer, Muhlenberg grad.
Cool.
Saw him perform. He was Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar one summer while I was there. He was fucking great, so good. Lots of Muhlenberg on Broadway recently. Someone I graduated with in Hell's Kitchen this year. No, I mean, that was a great production. I love when people go to Into the Woods on Broadway and they have no idea what they're gonna watch people die in Act 2. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like we hit intermission and the people sitting in front of us were like, wow, what can happen in Act 2? Everyone's happy. And I went,
that's like most Sondheim shows. Like Sunday's the same way. It's like, what else is there?
Yep. Rachel looked at me and goes, oh, well, they're in for a rough rest of the show. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, Chris, I agree with you. Some of the best casting. I did not love a Patina Miller witch.
Wow.
I think I would have preferred,
Berry was better witch between two I saw.
Heather Headley. Yeah. I really wanted to see her do that. Her Stay With Me from the Kennedy Center production is unbelievable. So but I mean, just like I said before, it showed just how unbelievable of a performer Sarah Bareilles is. I think people only thought she could do her music until they saw her do that. She had me sold from moment one. I saw Gavin Creel's understudy. It was sad, but he was also phenomenal. I loved every second of it, top to bottom. I love how sparse everything was, because again, you don't have to fix the thing that's broken, but if you can let me, that was a production that said focus on the people in front of you, not what's around them, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. You really got to focus on the characters. Philip Pursue was a phenomenal Cinderella. We also didn't have Julia Lester that day. That sucked. I know that was Rachel is one of the people who does know her, and she was bummed. But I mean, just on the whole, that whole production was beautiful, and I think we were just lucky to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah. JD, Matt, any thoughts on the Into the Woods revival, or no?
I haven't even listened to the cast recording of it, but I wish that I could see a version of it, because Brian Darcy James is the baker. That sounds amazing.
Unbelievable.
and Sarah Bareilles, my wife loves her, so I would definitely like to see this one.
Zach, you're up now for pick number 4 in round 3. Let's roll along to your next pick. What are you going to pick?
I'm gonna take my solo, just because I listen. I don't think it's gonna go, but I don't want to be wrong. And I think I'll get my group number unless JD steals it. And I'm gonna take Being Alive.
That was the other one I was gonna pick. If Getting Married Today got vetoed, I was gonna be like, all right, well, I'll pick Being Alive.
I mean,
it's the solo. But
it is very seldom that I will cry to a song as I listen to it. Every time I cry, every time. Specifically Raul Esparza, I will say. I don't love Katrina Lenk's rendition of it. But also I think that there's a difference between Katrina Lenk and Raul Esparza for me because of gender. I think that that's a very important thing. I would love to hear what anyone female identifying, how they think of Katrina Lenk's version of it. But listening to Raul Esparza's version of it is so you can't not get chills. Matt, I'm very similar in the lyricism of it. And for me, it's not the lyrics of the song. It's every time that beginning section as he's speaking and they keep coming in, specifically by the time you get to Want Something, I'm like a puddle. It's just like, it's unbelievable. Everything about it is this like, it's a journey and a half, and I will never not love every second of it. My goal as a singer, I think, is to be able to sing that song flawlessly while providing the emotion that it deserves. And I'm like 80% there. But I think it's flawless. Yeah. It's flawless. I can't believe it went undrafted this long.
I know it is one of those things that could be a first overall.
My next pick after when it come back to me.
Chris, you had the opportunity, man.
This is my number 2 on my solos.
Nice.
And I heard this song before I had seen Company. I think a lot of people I think that because it's famous enough that a lot of people.
Was it Marriage Story that you first heard it?
No,
you heard it before that.
I had seen Company before I saw Marriage Story, but that scene in Marriage Story is great. Yeah, that's great. I like how he does all the parts. But there's a. I'd heard the song before I had seen Company, and I didn't love it the first time. I thought it was good. I thought there were parts like I liked his like Bobby Booby. I loved his
Bobby Booby
parts of it, but out of context of the show, it feels like all of the people talking to him are like pressuring him into something he doesn't want. When you see the show, you realize
he wants it.
He
does want it.
That's the point where he wants it, and that's what makes that song so beautiful. Is that not to go too deep into things, but I do not like the character of Bobby through most of that play, and I don't know if you're supposed to. I don't know. He's just not a very good person, and
you are not supposed to like Bobby because you don't really like yourself when you're that person.
Maybe that's true, but I would never. I wouldn't use someone's trauma and then take it into a story that to try to get me laid. That's the kind of thing that I don't like about Bobby. I think that Raul Esparza, he's one of the best Bobbies I've ever seen, because I think that I think when Bobby is done right, and we're talking about the character, and I know the song, but it's going to go back to the song. When Bobby's done right, he is conceited, he is smarmy. Raul Esparza looks at the audience through the whole thing as though they are basking in him, as though he is the most important thing. By the time you get to being alive, he is basically broken down to, I'm not satisfied with who I've been, and this is who I want to be. This is what I want. And that's what makes this song so beautiful, is that in the context of the show, it's this turning point for this guy. And then after that, the play basically ends. I mean, there's a little bit, but it's basically over at that point. Over. Yeah. Because at this point, it's like this journey has led to Bobby making this choice. And at that point, you're like, okay, maybe I'll like that Bobby. And I dig that.
Yeah, it's a great number, and I agree with you. I don't think you're supposed to like Bobby through most of it, because he also is. I mean, he is that there are moments where talking about going to Dill's choice, where somebody's getting married. This person is clearly distraught, and he goes in and he's like, "I'll marry you. Yeah, I don't care." I'm like, and it's like, you're like, no, like, I mean, I'm single, but I would be like, I wouldn't like, I'm empathetic enough. He's not he hasn't gone to the point where he's empathetic. He has not
been humbled.
He's not been humbled.
He's very selfish, which is what makes this song great. Anyway,
yes. He is very selfish throughout most of the play. And then I think also there's another great part of the play where, they're talking about, no, you're not ready. They're like, he keeps like, oh, I'm not trying to resist it, but you're not everything that you say, you're not ready. And he hasn't accepted himself. He hasn't accepted his flaws. And I think he's at the end of the play, he's finally able to accept his flaws.
Yeah.
And now he's finally open to it. You can't love somebody else until you're willing to accept everything about yourself, or most about yourself.
That's a good point. Yep. Chris, any last thoughts on being alive?
This was also in my top 3 favorite songs. So this is a song I love. I only think I love Arrow. I think Katrina is decent. I like the London female a little bit more, in addition of it. I like Neil Patrick Harris' version of it, and the one that he did. That's but Arrow is the best. I think it's the most unique, and it's a great emotional Sondheim song. I think I talk about best version of 1890. Marriage Story probably is my favorite version of 18.
Nice. Yeah. Adam Driver, he's not the best vocalist, but he brings so much emotion to it that it works.
Yeah.
You know,
and it worked in the context of that movie. It works really well.
And I do think you mentioned it. I do think Neil Patrick Harris is a good, not as good as Raw, but
he's a good Bobby.
The thing about
unlikable.
The thing about Neil Patrick Harris is he plays it too much everyman and not enough of the smarmy selfish, and that's the difference for me. I still think he's good. I think I like his version of it, but
Alrighty, JD, you're up on the clock. You get 2 picks, 1 back to back.
So,
what are you gonna
get? My production is everybody's chosen production at this point, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna save that for my last because I made some intentional choices with that. So first off, I think for for character, I already JD.
Okay. Just a reminder, we do still have 2 whole rounds.
Yeah,
and,
I'll go group number next. All right.
What are you going with?
Do you guys hear that? Listen, there's another national anthem.
Oh yeah, that's good.
This is as we get to the end of the draft. This is I wanted to represent the blind spots that I really enjoyed, and to me, there's another national anthem. I think, to me, it kind of number one, I think it if you want to symbolize the show in one number, I think another national anthem is it, because it's so much about it plays on the themes of this being the dark coin of the American dream. That this whole musical is a satire about the dark side of the American dream, and this whole other part that you're not hearing about. And I think the positive side, represented by the ball of deer, he's getting slowly drowned out throughout the whole thing. It is funny. It is dark. It is hopeful, but the hopefulness is now getting slowly drowned out. And also in this number, if you're watching certain productions, this is where the twist where the ball of the year becomes you realize the ball of the year is also John Wilkes Booth, or with productions that do
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald. I'm sorry, Lee Harvey Oswald. Getting the 2 names confused. It's late. But he becomes Lee Harvey Oswald, which I do think. I kind of like the productions that do that, because I think that plays in the duality of that. That is Lee Harvey Oswald is the assassins, hope. Like the ball of deer is the hope of the American dream. He is Lee Harvey Oswald represents everything that the assassins want to be. And I just it introduces that wrinkle that kind of brings music, the great Sondheim musicals into a second gear. I just loved Assassins. I saw this really, if Matt knows, I saw this really terrible bootleg. But even in that,
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's
2004 version. But even in that version, you can get to that. You understand it. The intent comes through.
Yeah,
and it really caught this. Assassins really caught me by surprise.
Yeah, I've actually never seen it. I've listened to it, but I've never actually seen it. So I actually need to re-listen to pick out exactly what this song is, because there's the one famous one that I knew before I knew what Assassins was, but this one I need to listen to again. But good pick, Matt.
I'm just gonna be brief. You all know that I think Assassins is an underrated musical. And this is a good pick. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah. Zach, you were in Assassins. How do you feel about this pick?
It's my favorite Sondheim show I've ever been in. Period.
Nice.
Point blank. It was amazing. Everything about it was amazing. It was I was in it right before the 2016 election, so you can imagine how that felt going into how that all went down. But I think it's a criminally underrated show. Some of the best music that he has. Nothing stand out enough to pick for a greatest solo. But I mean, like, character wise, it humanizes some of the most evil people in the entire world, in the entire history of our nation, and it still somehow makes me love them. I was Shulgosh when I played it. I loved playing Shulgosh. He was a beautiful soul to play, not a good person, but it doesn't matter.
Great. And it also has some of the great. I think it is. I think it's his most. In my opinion, it's his. Even watching it, I've already come to the opinion. I think it's potentially his most underrated musical, and I think it has so many great group numbers. I just picked one, but I could. I had to narrow it down to 3 because
for sure.
I thought there were
for the satire to work. You have to kind of have sympathy for the characters. You have to love them, even though they suck, and that's a requirement for the satire. So I could see why some people would be turned off by that, but it works for me.
Yeah. Yes. Well, JD, you do get another pick back to back. What would you like? Oh yeah, Chris, go ahead.
I love Assassin to death. I do. That was my second favorite ensemble song. I'm not sure to bring up later, but I will mention it on the anything else.
Very cool. JD, you're back up on the clock. Another pick. Are you picking a
right,
character?
I figured it out for my character. I'm gonna go with characters from Follies.
First Follies mentioned. Love it.
I another one that it was another blind spot, but I think is especially like when you juxtapose that to Gypsy. Like, I feel like they're very much of a piece.
Mm-hmm.
They're both about vaudeville. One right at the end of vaudeville, one kind of retrospectively looking back at vaudeville. But I think the character I really sympathized with the most was Buddy from Follies. I think he has some of the greatest numbers. I'm not going to say them out loud because people still have their group numbers and solo numbers, but there's one when he thinks something has happened between two characters that his solo, I think, is heartbreaking. And you see all the years he's wasted but he still is going to put up with it because he still loves his wife, despite the fact that she is, I think, she has a lot of trauma verging on mental illness, but he loves her anyways, and he'll accept her, and he'll always go back to her because he loves her. And I think it is sad, but it's bittersweet. The whole musical was bittersweet, but I also think one of my favorite sequences, the wrinkle, if you will, his solo in the wrinkle, where he has like the two Sally are acting like his puppets, I think is also one of the funniest numbers in the whole play. I just think, again, talking about another underseen, underrated Sondheim musical, I think this is in my opinion, this is his Gypsy, because I don't think he had a lot of control with Gypsy. I think he said that like it's his for hire. So I think it's fascinating that he went back, even despite all that, he went back to vaudeville, looking back at vaudeville.
I get what you mean. Like, Gypsy is still his Gypsy, but like I get what you mean. Like if he had a whole control over
Correct.
this is what
That's
it would
what I
look like.
mean.
I get you. That's just funny. A funny way to put it. But yeah, it's a good point. It's a very underseen, which is why I don't have a lot to say about it because it's one I have to revisit. But I did see the version with Bernadette Peters, the revival with Danny Burstein, a video of it. And it was very, very good. Yeah.
Or Buddy. Buddy is the saddest character in that. I mean, technically Sally is the saddest character just because of what she's gone through and what she's had to go through throughout this whole thing. But poor Buddy is in a love triangle where no one wants Buddy, and and which doesn't really make it a triangle so much as he's a dot right outside this line. But it's really heartbreaking, his whole role. So I definitely understand finding it very relatable because I find it relatable as well. Like it's a tragic character and it's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Buddy Plummer? Right, last name Plummer, I think.
I'm on your boat, Dylan. I don't know a ton about
blank
Follies.
spot for me, but
So there we go, guys. Watch Follies because Zach, Chris, and I need to. It is a very underseen, very under. This is the best thing about the last.
No, sorry. There's 2017 West End production with Imelda Staunton as
fantastic
as Sally, and her losing my mind. The type of pick, but her version of that song destroyed my soul. So
yes, fantastic.
I was just about to say the last picks of the draft, like the last two rounds, are always so fun because it kind of gets a little deeper than like the more basic. Even though nothing's basic with Sondheim, it's all great. But like you know what I mean, like the little heavier hitter, underrated picks are usually at the bottom. Speaking of Zach, you still have to pick a character. You still have to pick a group number. What are you gonna go with?
I do have a question.
Okay.
I'm interested to see if people will veto it. If they do, I have a backup.
Okay. So this is your group number, correct?
This is my group number.
Okay.
Would we allow me to take the combination of Your Fault into Last Midnight?
I would lean towards veto because they're technically on the soundtrack. They're two separate songs.
Yeah, I would say Last Midnight is a solo. Your Fault.
I can make my case for why. I don't know if it will change your mind.
Say, if you pick Your Fault, you can still talk about Last Midnight, but
but that's not the same. I say Your Fault into Last Midnight because Your Fault is a direct lead into Last Midnight. There is no finality to Your Fault in order to get to Last Midnight. Like it's not. I know that they are separate tracks within the show, but they are. You cannot have Your Fault without Last Midnight, and you can't really have Last Midnight without Your Fault.
This is tough. I will veto the two combination, but I'll give you Your Fault. But
great, then I won't take it. I will be taking the Act 2 finale of Sweeney Todd.
I vetoed it.
Yeah, everyone else was.
Okay.
I will be taking.
Vetoes. Does a third person veto? Matt or Chris, do you veto?
I like to swing for the fences, so I'm going to let him have it. But it sounds like the rest of them.
So Chris will make it break it. So JD and I vetoed. If Chris vetoes it, Zach doesn't get it. If Chris allows it. Zach
because one is solo and one is a group number. I had to veto it.
That's fine. I'm going to take the entire Act 2 finale of Sweeney Todd.
Okay, there you go.
And that is what it's one track. It's one track.
That one.
I'm looking at it right now on the Wikipedia because that's the best source of it. But final sequence is labeled, and then it's kind of got subsequent. So final sequence of Sweeney Todd will.
It is a work of musical genius. The Act 2 finale sequence of Sweeney Todd in every way, shape, and form is the most well put together Sondheim group number, point blank, period. The only reason I would have opted for Your Fault and Last Midnight over it is because of length and because of just like the pitter patter and kind of what we are talking. But the Act 2 finale sequence of Sweeney Todd is beautiful because it allows you to think, realize, and gain agency over everything that has happened over the last 2 hours and 15 minutes in real time, and you will have every emotion that all of the characters go through from the minute her little and then into him killing her, into him getting down and
like slitting, or no, sorry, even before that, when he slits her throat, it sings the "And my Lucy lies in," and he kills his wife. The entire sequence leading into him throwing her into the oven, the like silence break before Toby comes in and kills him, and like that then just leads into the finale. It's unbelievable. I listened to the whole thing and don't skip a single beat of it. Oh, and Pretty Women in there, like it's perfect, and no one can convince me otherwise.
You convinced me, Zach. Anyone else on the film? JD.
Yeah, I think so. Again, when we're talking, Sweeney Todd is still my favorite Sondheim musical. I mean, I didn't take it because I made an intentional choice. Any version, because I made an intentional choice. Besides the film adoption, of course, because that was just my first. But like, Sweeney Todd is my favorite musical, and that is that I think the relatability, but then also was one reason, but also that final sequence where it just completely gives into the madness and chaos that is Sweeney Todd. Like, it is just from the moment. The thing that I love about that sequence as you said, the moment that Joanna walks into the barbershop, which leads into the final sequence. It is just complete madness. It is complete madness, and I love the callback of even and all the callbacks, everything. But it's so chaotic. You could miss things, but then it leaves for more rewatchability too. Like I don't think I caught the first time the "Don't I know you?" when he realizes that it's Lucy.
Don't I know you?
You don't I know you. That's what she said. And it is, I don't think I caught that because of just the pure chaos of it. It is brilliant. You don't have to convince me.
Yeah, I love the final sequence of it. The Toby, we all you love Toby. Nothing to harm you. That bit with Miss Lovett and him looking for Toby. There are haunting stuff in that song. I think production that haunt me to this day. That you mentioned it. The Emily after her the family wait for him when he say, "Mr. Lovett, you did." She's scared of him all of a sudden too. Camelo straight out being strangled by Sweeney Todd to death when I saw it in the pie shop scene. That you don't see the strangulation, you just hear the noise. It just haunt me still to this day. And it's brilliant. The Toby stuff is brilliant. I think Joe Locke is still my favorite portrayal. The madness of Toby. Not a lot of people have seen Joe Locke performance. That he is the best Toby I've seen. Yeah, it would have been one of my picks. I try not to pick the same thing for every category, but it was on my show.
Yeah, that's fair. Matt or Zach, you brought it up. Sorry, Matt. Do you have any thoughts?
Just real quick, it's a great number. I love it as well. I love how it repeats several motifs and songs to remind you of the emotion of that moment, and I really love that of those moments throughout the thing to give the weight to what's happening in the thing. I would also like to mention that you kind of got screwed on Last Midnight, Your Fault in Last Midnight, because they are one track. They are one track.
Are they one track?
They are one track.
I do think you got the better pick.
I think you probably did get the better. I don't know if I'd say. I don't know. But
they're both good. Yeah. Chris, you're up. I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna fact check those.
They are two different tracks on the new soundtrack, but on the OBC,
on the original,
they are
one track.
One track. Sorry, I'm good with it.
Okay, quick question. What do we consider a group number?
More
you
than
tell
one
us the
person
song, and
singing.
we'll
we'll let you know.
How big is the group? Is what we're talking.
Do you consider just 2 people a good number?
Yeah.
What song are you thinking?
You know what? I mentioned I would have picked the same show, but you know what? I gotta go for a little priest from Trini John.
So I only because we were talking about this, that to me is so much that feels very much like 2 solos rather than a group.
Didn't you guys argue with me earlier when I said it was solo?
No, we argued that it was. I thought you were arguing it was a group. No.
No, I was arguing that you and I talked about it, said it was a solo.
Yeah, I think it's a solo
because his parts are basically just like dialogue to her.
That was my argument. Zach was saying it was a group, right?
I more meant. Wait.
It's a solo camp. I'm going to veto this. I think this is more of a
we've
Love It.
360'd. Oh, I argued that it wasn't like he's not just like little dialogue. He has a substantial role in it, but I don't find it to be a group number. Like,
so you'd say it's a solo then?
Is it a solo or duet?
Oh no! Now I'm gonna give it. Oh, because Matt's gonna pick it.
No,
Chris, you want to take it as your solo?
No. I already picked. I'm gonna veto it. I'm gonna say it's a solo.
I think it would fall more under the solo. Yeah, so I will veto as well. JD and Matt, are you vetoing it as a group number?
Yeah, I was. I
carried this. We're gonna veto the pick as a group number, but you're welcome to take it right now as a solo because you still have.
Not that my vote matters. I would have said it was a group.
Okay, Chris, are you still taking it as a solo, or do you want to pivot?
You know what? I take it as a solo.
Okay, so you're getting it either way. I think that's a smart choice.
I would turn between 2 Twin Tots on, and like because I also wouldn't almost go with another good test, but this is like when you talk about Twin Tots, there's 2 big numbers that people love from Act 1. There's this and then the solo that comes before. But this to me is the funniest, the most wordy Sondheim song, but it's clever, it's funny. The way Annalie after Josh Groban did it when, you prevail Red Around his private, and that moment where Annalie did one of the most funniest moments, David Johnson, but and that's why I don't like the movie, because they cut out the cleverness of the song. Like, it's funny, it's diabolical. It's the best moment between Todd and Miss Lovett. It's that them coming together finally, coming up with this ingenious plan, and it had a lot of great callbacks, a lot of funny joke, and you can do it in many different ways. I've seen many different ways joke been done with Annalie, Reddit, with other people around, but it is my favorite solo in Trini John. I almost went with the one before it, but I don't want the more funny.
I agree. It's probably my favorite song in Sweeney Todd as well. I also love how it's an Act 1 finale without feeling like an Act 1 finale. Like, it's more of a private character moment, which I like more than like I do like when it's like a big Act 1 finale, but I think there's also something to be said about the opposite. So I think it's a great pick. I think getting in the 4th round is a great steal.
It's my number 3 solo. It's his. I think for me, it is his funniest and his wittiest. It's his wittiest song, Stan Sondheim's. I really love this song. I'm more forgiving of the movie version because I think that the stuff they cut out feels more appropriate in a theater setting, almost as though you're talking to the audience with the stuff they cut out. Because you're doing that for the benefit of the audience. In a movie, it would feel almost fake a little bit, some of the stuff that they cut out. So I get why they cut out some of the stuff, but the substantial parts there. But I just think it's a very funny number. I love it. It's incredible. It's like I said, it's number 3 on my list.
Zach, anything, Zach?
I love it. No, I've already listen.
You love it or Mrs. Love it?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the 3rd time I made that joke today.
No, I think it's a great pick. I think it's one of the best Sondheim songs. Period. But yeah.
JD, anything?
Agreed. I'm with Matt. I don't think that the film adaptation captures the spirit of the song. without it, I still think it's funny. Without with cutting some of the tram. I mean, if you're a music, but we have a bunch of music. I know we have feeder people here, so I get it. You don't want to lose anything, but
I also feel like they just played it straight in the movie rather than make it like they enjoying talking about what they do.
Oh, I think they find it very funny.
Yeah, like, I think Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp are very like you see that they're they're ribbing each other back and forth. Like,
yeah, they're even chuckling throughout it. Like it, I think for me it works, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not talking about that, but it's good.
All good. All right, moving on to me. I was gonna just save my film for last, but because it's just me and Matt right now, and Matt has already taken the character, I might as well take my film because it wouldn't make sense to take the character and then him deciding my film. So I'm gonna just take the film now. This was my number. I guess it's my number 3. It was my number 2, and then I realized there were 2 West Side Stories, so it's my number 3. This is a film I haven't seen in a while, but I remember growing up watching because I was a big Hocus Pocus fan. And I love Bette Midler, and it hasn't come up yet because I also think it's tough because this isn't going to come up a lot in conversation because he's only written the lyrics for it. But for film adaptation, when there's only 7 options or whatever, this is definitely a great one, and that's 1993's Gypsy. It is a TV movie, but it is a movie. I love it also because Bette Midler still looks the same she kind of did during Hocus Pocus at this time with like the red hair, like the Little Orphan Annie kind of look, which I love. It's like that's what I associate with like Bette Midler, even though she's gone through so many different iterations of style. I'm like, that's Bette Midler to me, and she just crushes it as Mama Rose. This film, this story is so interesting. The way kind of JD was talking about Folly is like the one lives in the kind of burlesque or that kind of vaudevillian era. The one kind of looks back at it. I think this is a very fascinating film, and the fact that you have a character who's kind of past her prime. It's almost a Sunset Boulevard thing, but also existing with her kid who is in it and doesn't necessarily always want to be in it. And just what stardom does to a family that is so roped up and involved in it. I grew up with dance moms, quite literally in my life. I grew up around dance moms, but also with the show Dance Moms. And I've seen all the ins and outs of what theater can do to families in a negative sense that I think sometimes we glamorize and we forget that like there's a realness to the arts and the showbiz that I think Gypsy gets really right. And while Stephen Sondheim might be the least directly involved in Gypsy of all his works, I still think it's a great show and a great film adaptation. There are multiple, so I'm not going to tip picks for the other one, but in case Matt wants it. But I do think this is my favorite only because I think Bette Midler just is insane. And I also always associate Chinese food with Gypsy. Every time I eat Chinese food, I think of Gypsy. So, and I eat some tonight.
This is the only version of Gypsy I've seen. I haven't seen a staged version of it, and I really like this movie. It was next on my list.
Woo! So wait, you would have taken it?
Yeah.
Oh, I made the right call. Cool.
That's fine because the one next after that I love just as much, so it's fine. But it's funny because Sondheim. You say, he only wrote the lyrics of it because Do I Hear a Waltz failed so spectacularly. They were afraid to not get an established composer,
right?
Do it. So that kind of sucks. So there was a world where he was going to do the music and lyrics for Gypsy, but didn't get to. So I would have loved to have seen that, but as it stands, the music is good, and I really like that movie. That's really all I have to say about it.
Yeah. Anyone else seen the version? I know it's a little bit more niche because of the TV movie. Chris, do you like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Like I like Gypsy a lot. I might be up for group. I'm still debating, but
yeah, there still may be some Gypsy picks to come. JD, any thoughts on this?
I saw both versions for. I rewatched both versions for this. I will say that I think this is the superior of the 2 versions. I'll talk about what I think about both versions overall if somebody else decides to choose that one. I don't know how many people have film adaptation left.
Just
Matt.
So, and it doesn't sound like Matt may. I think because I have actually seen it on stage. There was an off in Fort Lauderdale. There was a theater troupe that saw it, and when I saw that, and then I compared that to what seeing it on stage versus seeing both of these versions, I think Ben Willer, you're right. She is great as Mama Rose. She is so good that she overpowers everybody.
That's true. It is very much Bette Midler Gypsy. But then again, I feel like all the versions of Gypsy are that. It's like, well, we could tip actresses, but it's like Patti LuPone or coming soon, Audra McDonald. It's like it's always about the actress.
That sounds awesome.
So, and you know what they're doing, Matt, is they're making Louise black and Baby June biracial. And guess who's playing Herbie? From what I've been hearing.
Right.
Mr. Holdovers himself, Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti.
Oh my god.
Paul Giamatti and Kiki Palmer.
Kiki Palmer's Louise. That's going to be such a good show.
And it's going to cost $1,000.
I was going to say, so we're going to start a GoFundMe now to get Matt to New York to come see Gypsy with me.
But it's that I don't think either version got it quite right, but you picked, in my opinion, you picked the right version.
Yeah, shout out to my sister also who played Baby June in Gypsy years ago at the Algonquin.
I was wondering what that Algonquin Arts Theater playbill was. I was
and Baby Louise is starring in a local production of Beauty and the Beast that's happening as we speak. Moving on next, I'll text you, Zach.
Julia?
Matt, yeah, she played Baby Louise in that, and her mom directed it. So there you go. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm closing this out. I'm going to save the thing that means most to me for my last one. So my second last one is going to be the movie here. You guys took you guys took 1 through 4. And I have a 5th one here. I actually just watched, this is not my pick, but I just watched A Little Night Music, the movie today, and I actually really enjoyed it, but I like that play. Cool. So
that was my number 3, now 4, because I forgot about West Side Story.
So I enjoyed it well enough. And I just do not like Into the Woods, the movie. So I'm so glad that there was more than 5, so I didn't get stuck with it. Which
means
are we
going to have a comedy tonight?
We're gonna have a comedy tonight.
Yo,
I don't.
A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Yes, this only includes 5 of 12 Sondheim songs in it. The movie does, but it makes sense because they add a lot of physical stuff into it, and they're trying to keep it into a movie length. But Zero Morsel is so funny in this movie. Everybody basically is just so funny in this movie.
Quite a funny thing, isn't it?
It's a funny thing, and that I read I read some reviews on it, and I think people don't really get this movie very much because they were like a lot of objectification. It's like, yeah, because it's about disenfranchised people breaking out and living their own lives. That's what they did, was objectify people because they thought people were objects. Like that's the point of what's going on in the movie. But I really like this movie. It's very, very funny. And it's the comedy in it is on par with is of the same ilk as something as a Mel Brooks or the Zucker Brothers or something like that. Like that's kind of how the feel that it has. And I really think it's funny.
Yeah,
it's very
funny. Yeah, I like it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but like when I was doing Fiddler, I was studying Zero Mostel's career, and I watched the Fiddler, but also this because he was such a charismatic figure. It's the thing that they do with the producers in Rent, where they had the people who played it on Broadway play it in the film, so you just get just something extra, I think, which is really cool. So
yeah.
I have thoughts on Forum? No, anyone else seen the Forum movie? JD has.
I watched it for this.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was fine. I think Matt is of a certain age, so it probably has more nostalgic value for him than it does for me.
It does.
But
yeah.
I see it. I can see it. I can see it. As somebody who loves Mel Brooks, I can see it. It just. But it was it was on my list, but it was like last. It was like my number 5. It was to me. It was like it's safely mid tier.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about films real quick, and we've done them all, I just need to real quick say that the main thing I don't like about the Into the Woods movie is that they forgot it was a comedy. I'm not a big fan of Rob Marshall's musicals. I'm actually not a big fan of Chicago. I don't think I think it's fine. I think it's good. I just don't think it's Best Picture. And so like I'm just not a big fan of him, the way he stages musicals. And this movie, when you weigh this against something like Sweeney Todd, Tim Burton understands Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
Rob Marshall does not understand Into the Woods.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's one of those things where it should work because it takes place in so many different parts of the woods, but there's something so magical about it just being the stage is this part of the woods and characters enter in and out of it and you are standing still rather than a movie where you're standing still and we're seeing it weaving in and out. I think it works so much better on stage. That's why they should never make Sunday into a film.
I defend certain parts of that movie. By no means is it a good adaptation of the movie at all. But like Chris Pine's
great and Meryl Streep is great. I will give them that.
Yeah, and then also, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the 90s, Jim Henson Company was going to do a version of they were like ready to film. Meg Ryan was cast as the baker's wife. Billy Crystal was cast as the baker, and Susan Sarandon was cast as the witch.
Of course.
And then the rest of it were going to be puppets or Muppets.
Brilliant.
And that would have been perfect.
Yeah, that would have been perfect because then you still would have gotten the comedic bits. Yeah.
And I think the Muppets, speaking to material and and creators, I think the Muppets for Sondheim would have been if Jim Henson was still alive, it would have happened. I solely believe this. If Jim Henson was directing that, it would have happened because he believed, like Sondheim believed with like musicals. Like Sondheim believed with musicals. Jim Henson believed with puppets. They're just mediums to tell different stories. I think that marriage would have been amazing.
Yeah, I will quickly just say, I don't hate the movie. I think there are parts that I like. I like the first half more than the second half, and they stay true to the musical more than when they diverge with part of the alive shit and everything.
Yeah.
And I think Emily Blunt was a good baker's wife. I think she
I think the casting in general is good. Like I think Anna Kendrick is also good. James Corden is the best performance I've seen him in a movie, but that's not really.
I do feel he's miscast, but I do think that he's fine in it. I don't hate the movie either. I just think that it's missing a bit, like it's missing a big thing, and that is the comedy.
Too Disneyfied. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it doesn't get dark enough and it doesn't get silly enough. It kind of stays in a weird middle gray area where it still wants to be fanciful. With anyway, we're not talking about Into the Woods because we need to move on to the final round. But Matt, kick us off. What is going to be your group number?
My group number, and this one was so hard because I love so many group numbers. I'm going to have to talk about one extensively in the honorable mention, so I'm going to be quick with this one, which is that my favorite group number in all of Sondheim is Joanna the Quartet from
I almost
picked
that.
You got Vito Little Piece. I'm like, okay, I did go with Joanna the Quartet.
I almost picked that. Good call.
I'm so glad that you guys didn't pick that because that's my favorite. I'm not trying to be controversial here. My favorite version of it is from the movie. It's the only thing I think that the movie does better.
I will agree with that.
The song itself is just, number one, it's just so beautiful. But the fact that it's a quartet of 4 people, Joanna and the 4 people who love her, actually love her, or the 3 people who actually love her. So it's, and it's, you've got one person, you've got Sweeney, who is lamenting the time he hasn't had with her, and during the same song, coming to terms with the fact that he may never see her again, and almost like accepting it, like being okay with that, even though he loves her so much and he wants to see her, he's just gotten to the fact that I may never see this person again. And then you've got Anthony, who is singing a love song, who is this is the person I am going to be with. I will do anything to be with this person, which is a great juxtaposition. This person who I love this person and I'm never going to get to be with them. This person, I love her and I will be with her. And then you've got her mom, the beggar woman, singing just a warning that this is not going to turn out well. And it's such a perfect marriage. And the way that they go back and forth throughout the song, it's just so beautiful. And the movie version, it just, I don't know. I go back to that on the sound, like back in 2007, we had CDs. They were these round things that you put into a player and you listen to it. I would constantly just skip back to Joanna, the reprise, over and over again, just because it just did it for me. And I very much love it.
Yeah.
So go.
It's great. I love when like you hear a song again sung by many characters doing many different motifs at once. It's also repeated, and I don't think anyone's going to take it because it wasn't all written. It was half written by him, but like it is also something you see in West Side Story as well with Sondheim as well. So yeah, it's just such a great device. I love it. It's kind of like the One Day More in Les Mis thing too. I just love that device, and I will just say it's the song I sang for Eamon Foley to get into Sunday in the Park with George, the solo version. So it hits a soft spot in my heart. And if I couldn't get either of the company songs, I probably would have picked the single version Joanna, but the solo version, the hit single Joanna. But it's a great song.
There's a third version that wasn't in the show. It's the Judge's version, and it's kind of weird.
The mea culpa.
Joanna, I do you what?
It's my backup plan originally. Where you guys then beat a little piece, and then you guys say, "Oh, do I think a solo?" Okay, and then I got
it was on my list to, if for some reason the film adaptation was going to get taken. It was on my list of that was the other way I was going to show love to Sweeney Todd, because I love that song so much. It is so sweet. Again, like Matt said, it is also, I would just add to what Matt said, it is also the last time, in my opinion, that Sweeney Todd has any semblance of Benjamin Barker. That is the last time he has any semblance of Benjamin Barker. And then after that, at the end of the song, he has completely given into the madness. And that's why he can't recognize her when he finally sees her.
Well, that's he lets go of Joanna in the song, and I think you're right. He lets go of her in the song, and then that's when it's not going to work for him.
Yeah, as I said, he's completely given in to Sweeney Todd. He is no. That is the last piece of Benjamin Barker, and now it's gone.
My favorite part of that song, and I think one of the most funniest jokes in the show is he killing people left to right, and then this guy come in with his daughter, and that look on Sweeney Todd's face, and like, okay. And at that out to the last time he have any humanity left, because he let the guy go. He doesn't kill them on it.
He's so annoyed.
Any last thoughts on the quartet? Zach, do you have anything to add to the quartet? Cool. All right, so I get my last pick. I've been really good about spreading the wealth. I did Sunday, then Company, Into the Woods, Gypsy. So now it's time for my character to go back to the top, to go back to Sunday, because it is my favorite show. Next to Pippin, my favorite musical of all time. So I'm gonna go with who I believe is the main character of Sunday in the Park, with George. And I'm gonna pick Dot. My joke was gonna be that I was Sunday in the Park with the baker Louis. I'm gonna pick the lead of the show, who I believe is Dot. I believe her perspective is the vital perspective in the show. Obviously, even in my personal interpretation of the director for my show, it was a lot of like personifying George's paints and colors, but even through that, the blue in George's palette was always coming back to Dot. Like, it always comes back to Dot, because Dot is what drives the conflict, drives the relationship, drives the narrative. And yes, George could be seen as like he is the titular character, and like everything's kind of seen from his perspective. But a lot of, the whole song "Something in the Park with George" is Dot's. It's all her story and her arc. And yes, she's not in Act 2 until the very end when she comes back as like a ghost. But I do think just her whole journey of like learning how to stand up for herself and make her own decisions, kind of like the baker's wife thing. He does this a lot, or Lapine did as well, is just like finding these moments of female agency while still not ignoring the fact that she still loves him. And I think that's the amazing balance they teeter there, is like she loves him and she knows she has to let him go, and that makes it even worse, but she also has to live and has to, make her own choices and make her own decisions. In her song, I love it. It's like there are Louis and Georges. Well, Louis and George. There's only one George, but this is what I need right now. And I love just how she comes to all these realizations herself. And I love how she stands at her ground and stands up for herself. I think it's always an emotionally investing role, and emotionally arresting role, and I think every actress I've seen portray it, from seeing Talia do it up close, quite literally, and then Bernadette Peters and Annalie Ashford, another great Annalie Ashford Sondheim moment. She's becoming really one of those Sondheim staples as well, but every version I've seen, she has always been the heart of the film, or of the show. I'm so used to talking about films on draft day. So Dot is gonna be my pick. Also, I mean, it's a show about pointillism and you name the lead Dot. I love it.
It's great.
I love it. It's a great choice.
Mrs. Lovett, Baker's wife, Dot. That was the order of my thing. So if Baker's wife had gotten taken, I would have taken Dot from you. I think she's great. Her and her daughter, both played by Bernadette Peters, or the same actress, are the only two characters that are in both Act 1 and Act 2, and which I think is nice.
Yeah.
But her character, I don't know, she's funny, but she also like has these heartbreaking moments.
She's witty. Yeah.
She is wit. Yeah, she's witty. She has these heartbreaking moments. It's very Sondheim. And I'm looking at my list. I've got out of 5, I've got 4 women. Sondheim writes these characters like Baker's wife and like Mrs. Lovett, who almost feel like the main character of their story, of the thing, even if the male counterpart is the protagonist or the main character. They feel like they are they're who the story is about. And Dot is very much, it feels like that's who the story about, at least Act 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else on Dot? I know we
Talia was
my number 4.
All 3 of you went at the same time. We'll go around the corner. Chris, go first.
In my number 4, Miss Lovett, The Witch, Baker's wife, and Dot. I love all 3 of them. Like, all 4 of them are amazing characters. Like, it's just a great female role. Like, Sondheim knowing a very wonderful female role that anybody could play and make it lovable, believable. Dot is one more likable character in the Sondheim show.
Yeah. JD?
That was also my number 4. I had The Witch, The Balladeer, Benjamin Barker, Sweeney Todd.
I was going to say, JD, Zach hasn't even gone yet, so you're tipping picks left and right.
I was going to say that was my list. But I love Dot. I love her. Going back to Bernadette Peters, I said, and the massive crush that I have. I mean, that and Into the Woods is weird. I just she understands the heartbreak and the wit of Sondheim more than in my opinion, more than, as I said before, more than anyone else. And they're just, again, there's so many great moments in that. I love when she's like, oh, you have when at the beginning of Act 2, when he's like, I apologize for my smoke. Oh, you have great concentration. And then she turns to the audience and wink to the audience, her eyes.
That's the whole. Yeah, it's like a great payoff for the joke.
It's great. I can't say enough about it. Did you guys already said?
Yeah, Zach, any thoughts on Dot?
Talia was unbelievable in this role. She was unfucking real.
The greatest performance I've ever seen on a stage, personally. But
for the moment she opened her mouth, it was stupid.
And I got to literally be inches away from it, which is awesome. But yeah, so good. Dot will always live in my heart. Also because she's the focal point of the painting too. So there's something to be said about that and how it aids to George's character. I love it. I could go on and on. I'll have another 3-hour stream of just myself rambling about Sunday. But Chris, you got to pick your group number. What are you gonna pick?
I went back and forth, and then I look at my shirt and realized, you know what? I had to go with that. Dylan, you mentioned it when you mentioned your group number. I didn't go with the other one. I'm going to go with Children Will Listen for Into the Woods.
Cool.
I've already picked mine, so I'm not angry.
It is a beautiful, beautiful song. It combination of everything at the end. The lyrics mean a lot to me. I love the Baker White bit when she be a father and mother to your child and tell him everything you know, and say nobody leave again that lead into the which children will listen. My favorite interpretation of the song is the London and Central Park production, where they revealed that the narrator is the baker's son that's telling the story, everything that happened, and you had the baker come in, hugging his son, finally find him, and he breaking down my beginning telling his story again. I think one of the most beautiful images I've ever seen, and they add the new lyrics to it, so it made it more poignant and more stunning. And when I've done Into the Woods, and many times I've done it, I cry every time I get to this song. There's tears in my eyes, and it's a beautiful. I think it's one of Sondheim's best closing songs.
It's a great pick, and honestly, I wasn't even alluding to that one earlier. Since everyone's picked, I'll just say I was talking about No One Is Alone. So the fact that it has like so many banger group numbers,
Well, No One Is Alone is a solo. It is No, it's not. Sorry,
no,
there are two people.
Because
no, you're right.
Baker and,
but it is.
Baker
Children Will Listen
Cinderella
does include No One Is Alone.
Right, it kind of it's because it's more of a finale in the way that the Sweeney one is as well. So two great finales drafted here with the Sweeney one and now the Into the Woods one. So
I need to talk about this one because it was my number 2. It was my number 2 pick on group numbers, and I was really going back and forth between Joanna and the finale, Children Will Listen. If this one was not brought up, because honestly I didn't know how much people liked it, if people loved it as much as I do, and I love it. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about The Baker's Wife and how much I loved her, that in the end it comes back to her finishing the story with this song, or with a portion of it, because it is a group number. But there's a particular line in this song that I will be having tattooed on myself.
Okay.
See here, you see that penguin? That is a memorial tattoo to my mother, who passed away a while ago, 5 years ago, something like that. My sister, who passed away 2 years ago, I will be getting a butterfly tattoo for her right here, and in between those, I'm going to put the line, "Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Do not let it grieve you. No one leaves for good."
Ooh,
and that line comes from this song, and it is it gets me every single time. This whole sequence just really gets me and makes me emotional. But I have a special connection to that because it feels like that portion is talking directly to me. But a lot of it is just the baker's wife and how it comes back around to her finishing the story, and I really, really love this song.
Finishing the hat, if you will. Not
finishing
really.
the hat.
Yep. JD, you're raising your hand. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but the reason I bawl for like the last 25 minutes of Into the Woods is No One Is Alone, then leading into Children Will Listen in the finale. I just think those two songs, I think really they pair they going back to the pitter patter. I really think they pitter patter well together. They really complement one another.
Zach, any thoughts on the finale, Into the Woods?
Nothing. You haven't all said. I'm so sorry. I'm fading.
It's okay. Well, you do have your last pick right now.
I know.
We're an hour over schedule, but that's all right because we're rounding out the corner. Maybe we'll save honorable mentions for description for the comments. But
Zach, God, no.
I'm sorry. We'll try to get this quick then. Zach, what's your final pick?
My final pick is my character. You've taken all of the strong women that I would have loved to have taken. And as much as I would love to take the baker, I love the overall complex nature and just the heartbreak that is Benjamin Barker, Sweeney Todd. I think, and this is what I've been waiting to say all night, People did not like Josh Groban as Sweeney Todd, and I think that those people are wrong, because what it proved is that Sweeney Todd is normally portrayed as this large hulking figure who is ominous and destructive, and the truth of the matter is, the scariest thing about Sweeney Todd is he is just simply a man with a vendetta and the tools to accomplish it. And you do not need to be a large, imposing figure in order to enact the revenge that he seeks. In fact, that is the thing that makes him the most terrifying, and the thing that makes him the most like skeevy. The reason I didn't love Johnny Depp is because it's like, well, of course that man kills people. Look at him.
It's advertised, yeah. Whereas
Look
if he looks
at
like an everyman, it's like the serial killer thing.
Josh Groban is
almost more frightening it is.
Josh Groban is smaller than Annalee Ashford, and his moments were much more tender. Like, his epiphany is not this like overwhelming, like hit you in the face. It's revving up for the rest of the show. In fact, if Sweeney's epiphany stopped the show, I think it's you pulled the trigger too fast. What should really stop the show, and what I thought stopped the show, was his finale. Just in general, the entire finale, Josh Groban is working. And did everyone choose their character?
Yes.
Great. My honorable mention
is a production from JD.
Great. The honorable mention for me would have been Gaten Matarazzo as Toby. I didn't see Joe Locke. I'm sure he was amazing. Gaten Matarazzo was unbelievable. That entire cast was like what is happening right now?
I knew there was a lot of mixed things about Josh Groban, but I didn't know that was why. It was because of his figure. That seemed
a lot of people thought he wasn't the right type. But
listen,
what is the right type?
And here's my thing. A lot of people cared a lot about the fact that John Groff and Jeremy Jordan played Seymour, but that's because Seymour is written to be squirrely and not an attractive man.
Yes.
Sweeney Todd is not written to be hulking and imposing. He is written to be broken.
Yes.
Sweeney Todd is a broken man. He is a former barber who literally was cast out because the fucking judge wanted his wife. That is the only reason. And I think that, like, as a character, that is, I have 3 dream roles in the world. That's probably at the top. Because it's just, there's complexity to it, but also it is so easy to be one note with Sweeney. And that is why I like Josh Groban so much. I might be like the only person who did, because I thought that it was so impressive to be so, like, he was almost, like, I don't want to say like Ted Bundy-ish, but like a little bit, like
in a way that Alan Rickman is in the movie, in a way,
right? Like
alluring,
right? Yes, like, oh, he's dangerous, but I don't know if I'd know that. Like, I know it because I'm watching, but I don't know if I'd know it.
And I think the other interesting thing about Sweeney Todd too is because it's mainly told from his perspective. Like, it's his story. It's told from his perspective mostly. Like, do we know if the judge really, that's the interpretation that we're seeing, but do we, because we've seen him for the most part, we've only seen him as, at least in the musical, we only see him as Sweeney Todd.
Right.
Once he's gone through all that.
Yeah.
Do we really know that, like, I probably the truth is somewhere in the middle, but do we know that it was all like, and it was all because of his life? Maybe it was partially, but
the other thing that I liked about I think Aaron Tveit is a little too little too swoon to be Sweeney, but I can but honestly I'd be okay with it because I actually can see a world where that makes sense. Like, he's so attractive that it's like, oh, that's the Ted Bundy.
Yeah, I get a haircut. Not the one who looks like a killer. Yeah,
right. But the thing that I loved the most is that in Act 2, and I never have seen it like this before, I feel like normally every Sweeney is like, I don't like Mrs. Lovett. He likes her. He likes her. He does. She's the only person showing him affection. And in some way, not everyone is Lord Voldemort, man. Like, you don't have to, like,
hate the world just because it's wronged you. And I think what's beautiful is that like he for a moment starts to enjoy life again because he has given up the idea that like it will ever be normal again, what it was. It's not until he figures out that she's lied to him and has caused him even more, like he breaks. I actually would argue, JD, that I don't think Joanna is the last time he is Benjamin Barker. I think it is the last time he willingly puts Benjamin Barker away, but the last time he is Benjamin Barker is when he's holding Lucy in his arms.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then Benjamin, and in that moment, Benjamin Barker dies. That's to me the difference. He tried to put Benjamin Barker away, but really what has to happen is he needs to die. And he doesn't know it until the very end. Can you tell I want to play this role?
Yeah,
Thank
can you tell you're a theater teacher?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, Chris. No, go ahead.
I love Sweeney Todd. He was also my number is 5. I think I had yet to. The only person that ever truly scared me as Sweeney Todd was Noam Lewis. He was. Yes. There's a moment where he strangling Pirelli. It was the audience trap type show, and he yelled at people to move. So he continued strangling Pirelli in the audience seat, and it's the most scariest thing I ever seen in my life.
That's one of the rare. That's the pie shop one.
Yeah.
That was so. For anyone who doesn't know, they staged Sweeney Todd in a pie shop. It wasn't even off Broadway. It was like off Broadway because it was in some other part of Manhattan. But yeah, they like you sat down at like almost like a long almost like the Great Hall at Harry Potter, like these long cafeteria tables, and like it was like this old vintage pie shop, and you would be served meat pies, and then they would do the show, and it was like a more like in the round interactive experience. It was the coolest idea. I didn't get tickets to see it because they were a gazillion dollars, but it was pretty cool.
But it's a great character. I think the most scary thing about Miss Sweeney Todd to me is to the end after he realized he killed Lucy, and the way he interacted with Miss Lovett before he either throw her in the oven, slit her throat, anything, like the calm, smoothing thing, and he wants to freaking kill her.
Yeah.
Like, again, and he's so open to interpretation. Like I feel like he's you can play him like 20 different ways. Like again, is he telling the truth? Is he completely telling the truth? Is he not? Like we don't know. Yeah. Like,
and it could be a role that's played more one note because it's like, oh, he slits people's throats, but it's not, and that's what makes it amazing. Matt, any thoughts on Sweeney?
I've talked about Sweeney today. I think he's a great character. He was my number 6. He was number like 3, but then I did some rearranging.
Nice. Well, JD, we have made it now to the Mr. Irrelevant pick. Pick 25. What is going to be? You're the only one so far that has not doubled up on any musical. So I'm wondering if you're going to keep that trend alive or if you're going to double up right now.
Oh, I'm keeping that trend alive.
All right.
I intentionally did not choose any of my top 3 musicals for my even top 4 for this choice.
Okay.
I'm choosing. I think it's his most unique musical. I also think it may be potentially his biggest swing. We can talk about it. But I am going to choose the original Broadway production of Pacific Overtures.
Okay. From 1976.
From 1976.
That's what this man waited all night for.
We're closing with the overtures. I love it. JD, why do you love Pacific Overtures?
Number one, this is another one that caught me by surprise.
It is good. I'm just saying it's a very unconventional pick, so I love it.
Yeah, it's the one that caught me completely by surprise. I mean, at this point, he's had a lot of hits, and like he's now cashing in that cachet by doing a completely Asian cast about the westernization of Japan, told completely with Asian actors. I'm like, I'm shocked that this exists at all. And not only did it exist, there are multiple productions of this, because this seems like darn near impossible to get funding, even as popular as he was when he decided to cash it in. Like it is, there are a bunch of things that I really liked about this production. I think the music is unique. Someone in the Tree was, I think, is it was on my list of group numbers. If I couldn't get this, that's what would have been my choice for group number. I think it is. I forget the interpreter's name. It's the God. It's late. The reciter. It was, what is it called? The reciter. He's talking about when America is about to meet with the Japan missionaries, and then all of a sudden this older man comes in, and then it goes completely to this younger man. He's just talking about, he's not even seeing it. He's just talking about how he's going about his day to day in the tree, and he hears that there's something going around in his window. It's so great. It is. I love how it starts very, very traditional, and then as the play goes along, the layers slowly get removed. Particularly in Bowler Hat, I think is one of the great solo, is a really underrated silver number, and then to kind of end with, I think, the reveal that the reciter was the emperor the whole time, and throughout the whole play he was a puppet, and then when he finally decides to speak for himself, it's revealed it's the reciter, and I'm just like, as a fan of the Muppets, anything with a puppet, I'm kind of on board.
I love it.
So
Great
yeah,
pick. Yeah, it's a good one.
I have seen this as well. I avoided it for years. And I told JD this. I avoided it for years because, or I actually may have told you all of you this, but I avoided it for years because I thought it was going to not age well. I thought it was like a white people doing an Asian. Like, I was like, I don't know. This is probably not going to age very well. So I avoided it for years. So I watched it for this thing, and there's a really great pro shot of it on YouTube. It's really well done. And I really enjoyed this production. It's very good. It's handled with care, which is nice. I love that it's done in a, like, the play is what a Japanese playwright at that time would, how they would make an American musical. So it's done as an American musical, but in kabuki style, where the men play women roles as well as the men roles, and it's just done in this very cool stylized way. I agree. Someone in a Tree is great. I really enjoyed this production a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Cool. I assume Zach and Chris, you don't have much or anything to add.
I'm so thrilled that JD got this.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I've listened to it. It's very good. It's a very JD pick. I agree. So we have finally made it to the end of the draft. We can do honorable mentions, but we got to just like fly through them. But I did want to bring everyone's draft board to light so people can go vote now. We're about 3:40. So go 3 hours and 40 minutes into this. So go vote. It should be up on the Facebook page now for you to choose from. Matt's draft, the original Broadway production of Into the Woods. The Baker's Wife is his character from Into the Woods. Send in the Clowns from Little Night Music. A funny thing that happened on the way to the Forum is this film adaptation, and then his group number Joanna, the quartet from Sweeney Todd. Dylan, Sunday in the Park with George, original Broadway production. Getting Married Today is a solo from Company. Prologue from Into the Woods is the group number. The Gypsy 1993 film adaptation, and Dot as a character. Chris, Mrs. Lovett is your character. West Side Story 2021 is your film. Into the Woods 2022 is your Broadway revival. A Little Priest is your solo from Sweeney Todd, and Children Will Listen to your group number from Into the Woods. Zach, film West Side Story 1961, Broadway production Merrily We Roll Along, the recent revival in 2023. Being Alive is your solo from Company. Final Sequence from Sweeney Todd is your group number, and then Sweeney Todd himself, Benjamin Barker, is your character. And then JD, your film is Sweeney Todd and the Dean Barber of Fleet Street, the Tim Burton version. Your solo finishing the half from Sunday in the Park with George. Another national anthem is your group number from Assassins. Your character Buddy Plummer from Follies. And your musical Pacific Overtures from 1976. So we kind of talked about all the films, so I don't need to like really go through that. But let's cycle through really quick. Any characters? Matt, did you have any honorable mention characters?
Joanne, but that just might be because I love from Company, but that might just be because I love Elaine Stritch so much.
Cool. That's it.
Oh, and sorry, and Charles from Evening Primrose. which Anthony Perkins played, and he is a gay icon, and it's Pride Month. So
nice. My honorable mentions for characters. I did have George as an honorable mention for Sunday in the Park. George. I did put Louis the Baker on the list for shits and giggles, and I also had the Witch from Into the Woods. Chris, any honorable mentions for characters?
Witch Into the Wood. Matt Chapmond from coming Duran, like
cool.
And what the character name that Daniel Radcliffe play in Merrily We Roll
Charlie.
Like from Merrily We Roll Along.
Cool. Zach, any honorable mentions for characters?
Yeah, the Prince, Cinderella's Prince from Into the Woods is a great one. The Witch as well. Beggar Woman. I mean, the Beggar Woman is highly underrated. The only reason I didn't pick is just I thought she wouldn't have a ton of notoriety, but yeah.
Cool. JD, any
characters? So I kind of jumped the gun earlier with a few of my honorable mentions, but the ones that I didn't mention were George, Sunday in the Park with George, John Wilkes Booth from Assassins, the Proprietor from Assassins, and the Emperor, Swastika Reciter from Pacific Overtures.
Cool. All right. So for solos, my honorable mentions were Another 100 People from Company. Even though there's a lot going on, there is still a solo song. The Ladies Who Lunch from Company, obviously. Send in the Clowns was on my list. Joanna from Sweeney Todd, the solo that got me the role in Sunday. Not While I'm Around from Sweeney Todd, beautiful number. Everybody Says Don't from Anyone Can Whistle, an underrated show that didn't come up today, and I'm pissed about it. Just is never number one for me for any of the categories, but it's such a good show. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Franklin Shepherd Inc. Merrily We Roll Along. Not a Day Goes By from Merrily We Roll Along. An amazing ballad. I Know Things Now from Into the Woods. Last Midnight from Into the Woods. Moments in the Woods from Into the Woods. Giants in the Sky from Into the Woods. And then Broadway Baby from Follies are on my list. Chris, any solo honorable mentions?
Franklin Shepherd Inc. from Merrily We Roll Along. Richard Lament from Into the Woods. I think that is very underrated moment in the show. Sweeney Todd, Not While I'm Around, and Pitney. That's probably nobody mentioned Pitney for Sweeney Todd. Like that was on my backup plan for Sweeney Todd solo. Lady Who Lunch. Marry Me a Little. I think really underrated song for Company. Like I think a really beautiful song. Whenever play Bobby. Like there are a lot of great songs. Rosy Turn from Disney and Everything Coming Up Roses from Disney. Well, like,
cool. Zach, any honorable mentions for solos?
None that you didn't mention, except for Stephen Sondheim's favorite song that he ever wrote, which is "There Won't Be Trumpets."
Yes,
from Anyone Can Whistle.
Yes, Anyone Can Whistle.
That was almost
such an underrated show.
That was almost my pick, but I went with Being Alive.
Yeah. JD, honorable mentions for solos.
Giants in the Sky, Into the Woods, Being Alive, which was picked. The Right Girl from Follies, Another 100 People, which Dyl mentioned as his honorable mention too. And Zach mentioned another honorable mention of mine. There won't be any trumpets from anyone.
Cool. Matt, any solo honorable mentions?
Yes, Giants in the Sky. It's really good. Losing My Mind from Follies. Everything's Coming Up Roses. Ladies Who Lunch, but again, I love Elaine Stritch. Not While I'm Around, Epiphany, No One Is Alone, Jet Song. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
There were a lot, but that's just what I wrote
down. All right, Chris, we're on to groups. Honorable mention group songs. Chris, what do you got?
Wherever We Go from Disney. We Get in the Country for Little Night Music.
That's a good one.
Ooh, Ever After from Into the Woods. Like when you say other group number, you think and Your Fault. Well, Sweeney Todd. The opening and so I know I thought about the opening too, but like I'm picking too many Sweeney Todd stuff.
I think we all talked about it ad nauseum with the movie too, which is why no one picked it. But we also snubbed the Ballad of Sweeney Todd. So we are what do you call it? Accomplices? I don't know the word. Culpable. Thank you, Matt. Matt always fills in the blank of the word I'm trying to think of. Zach, any honorable mentions for group numbers?
All of my honorable mentions are actually from West Side Story. America, G. Officer Krupke, Cool. I can't believe no one took Cool. That is so good.
The way they changed it in the movie is so good.
The Tonight Quintet, the climax of the show for me. Even though it's not the climax of the show. And then I guess if we were allowing it, but we did we did Little Priestess solo would have been A Boy Like That, My Love.
Yeah.
Duet, I would say. Yeah.
Duet. But
so yeah, it's not a solo, so it's
an honorable mention.
And it is hands down the best song of. I'll just say right now, I didn't put any West Side or Gypsy songs on either of my lists, just because for me, it's like a lot of the love for those songs comes from also the musical elements of it, not just the lyrics. So I left them off completely because I was like, I want to pick songs that are fully Sondheim. But if we were just go best song in a Sondheim project period, A Boy Like That, I Have a Love would be my number one overall. JD, honorable mentions for groups.
So you're gonna find this funny, considering what I picked as my first pick. I did have the Ballad of Sweeney Todd on the list for honorable mention for group numbers. Joanna Quartet was chosen. Everybody's Got the Right from Assassins.
Yeah.
No One Is Alone from Into the Woods. The Gun Song from Assassins. Move On from Sunday in the Park with George.
Absolutely.
Someone in the Tree, which I talked about at length with Pacific Overtures. Loveland, which I was to me is what really put Follies over the edge for me, up there for me. And then Side by Side Company.
Nice.
That's Side by Side.
Matt, any honorable mention group numbers?
Yeah, my earlier I had alluded to that my favorite number from West Side Story might surprise you, but Zach said it. It's G Officer Krupke.
So good.
That's a good one.
Yes, it's great.
I also like America, Agony, Someone in a Tree, and It Takes Two.
Nice. My honorable mentions are I can't believe I didn't pick it. It is my number one on my list, which is Sunday from Sunday in the Park with George. That was if I didn't get the show, but I felt like picking Sunday in the Park with George and then Sunday.
I almost picked it, and then I thought about
and I wanted to pick something Into the Woods, which is why I went with the prologue. But I also had Agony Into the Woods. I had No One Is Alone from Into the Woods. I had Sunday from Sunday in the Park with George. Move On from Sunday in the Park with George. Putting It Together from Sunday in the Park with George. You Could Drive a Person Crazy from Company. Company from Company. With So Little to Be Sure Of from Anyone Can Whistle. We Had a Moment, a Marvelous Moment, A Wonderful Time. Oh my God, that song rips my heart out. Joanna Quartet, The Pretty Women duet from Sweeney Todd is also up there. And then Our Time from Merrily is on my list. All right. One last one to go. This production. Zach, did you have any other honorable mention productions to bring?
Not really, truly, honestly. The only one that I would have taken the Company revival. I just don't love. I'm not like a big Katrina Lenk fan in that regard. I thought her in the Band's Visit is unbelievable, but that's a very different niche. And then the only other one would have been the Patti LuPone Gypsy revival, which I mean just is like a work of fucking art in and of itself. I sort of like what you said, Dylan. I tried to steer away from like the West Sides and the Gypsies, except for the films, because I feel like that's just like that's where Sondheim kind of like lives in film is West Side. But other than that, no. I thought that maybe the Assassins off Broadway that just happened with Ethan Slater, and I thought Neil Patrick Harris as Balladeer with Michael Severus. I mean that really like that show is crazy. With the amount of talent that's in there. So and the Michael Severus Sweeney as well.
Yes, which is also the Patty Sweeney. JD, honorable mentions for production.
I only have two. So for the most part, is that I kind of narrowed it down to like a top 5, top 6. Assassins 2004, that's the one with Neil Patrick Harris as the Balladeer and Michael Severus. Yeah, I'm going to butcher the last name. It's just too late. But yeah, is John Wilkes Booth. Great production. Is that was the one shitty bootleg, but the intent still came crashing through. Then the other one, if you were to allow the West End productions, I would have chosen Follies 2017 with Amal Stan in this out.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yes, so good.
That's fair. Matt, any honorable mentions for productions?
The Company 2006. Rose Barza. Yeah. Sweeney Todd. Nobody took Sweeney Todd from 82.
The original,
right?
the original Sweeney. Yeah, no one took it.
That also, although I do prefer Lou Caro. I love that production. And I think that's all I have. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, my only honorable mention, because I is the only one I've seen on Broadway, which is Company, the revival. Patti LuPone doing Ladies Who Lunch just crushed me. And I just love what gender swapping all the other roles that aren't Patty, what it does to the show, especially with Bobby's character, just totally recontextualizes it in a more palatable way. I think it makes Bobby a better character. It's just Katrina Link. They picked the wrong keys for her in some of the songs. And then the original Company, I've never seen the original production, but I've watched the documentary of the original cast recording today, actually, for the first time. And I do think it's like, very evident that show is magic. And Bobby Booby,
Elaine Stritch.
Yes, Elaine Stritch, and then the Bobby Baby Bubby Bubby thing, where everyone keeps mispronouncing Bubby. My favorite moment. And then the Sweeney Todd revival, Michael Cera versus Patti LuPone is great because like they played instrument. The orchestra were the actors.
Yes, that was so good. And then when they got killed, they put on a white coat with bloody lapels
and kept playing. Yeah,
because everybody was still on stage. Yeah,
I love it. Chris, any honorable mentions for productions?
Deputy with Patti LuPone, amazing production. Sweeney Todd off Broadway with the Pie Shop.
Yeah, the Pie
phenomenal production. West End of Into the Woods, the Regent Park Air production we have a Borchardt is freaking amazing. Hannah Waddingham is one of my favorite witches up to date so far. And then Central Park, Donna Murphy is my favorite witch interpretation. I think her Last Midnight is one of the most chilling The Last Midnight I ever heard last couple years. Like,
here we go.
I don't love Dennis to hear portraying the bacon. I like Amy Adams pretty much in that. Right.
Yeah, Amy Adams is in that one. Yeah, that's right. So many good interpretations of all his work, and I'm so glad we were able to highlight mostly all his. I mean, like our draft board is very diverse in terms of his shows. I was worried it would just be very.
No one picked Saturday Night. Weird.
Yeah, no. Very Into the Woods, West Side Story, Sweeney heavy, but we really got
available.
We got a lot of good diversity in there with like some Gypsy, some Folly, some Pacific Overtures, and of course some Assassin, some Sunday. So we really did have a good eclectic bunch. But I'm not gonna have everyone plug because you know where to find them. They're all over the channel. So.
The frog slander is just epic.
The frog. But yeah, thank you. Yes, if you never listen to Frogs, do yourself a favor. It really is. It's fun to listen to, but it's not one of his top tier. But will be in your head till you fail to sleep. But thank you guys for listening. It was such a pleasure hearing Matt, Zach, JD, and Chris's love for Sondheim. I know we went an hour and 10 minutes over what we originally wanted to, but it's because we had so many great things to say, and I'm glad we got to say it all. And I hope you all vote for one of these four guys because I don't think I won, but I'm happy with my draft board. So everyone could go vote now. I know who I'm voting for. Just kidding, I don't. But I know who you're voting for, so go vote. And that's it. I don't know, guys. I'm tired. I'm delirious. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you. Oh, I have to play the theme song to get us out of here. All right. Bye, guys.